My entitled upstairs neighbors thought that the quiet hours didn't apply to them, as they literally would play loud, booming music at all hours of the night, causing me, their downstairs neighbor, to literally get no sleep. So I decided to get some very well-deserved revenge by documenting every instance of them making noise, which eventually led to them getting evicted and kicked out of the apartment complex. Here's how it all went down. So I live in the bottomest below-ground apartment. This is not poetic license, it is a geological and emotional reality. My windows are at shin level. Spiders make eye contact with me like we're coworkers, and the sun checks in twice a day and then leaves me on red. This matters because sound does not behave normally down here. It does not fade or disperse. It settles in like it pays rent and then complains about the amenities. The entitled people upstairs moved in sometime in early spring. I know this because this is when sleep stopped being a thing that I did and started being a thing I remembered fondly. They were a couple, or maybe several couples, or maybe a rotating cast of people who all believed the apartment complex existed primarily to host them. The configuration changed often, but the entitlement was constant. They would play this music all into the night to hours past the apartment complex's rules on this, which are posted in several places, including directly by the mailboxes, and also in the lease they definitely did not read. Being the bottomest below-ground apartment, their music echoed like a maddening cacophony through my apartment. Bass first, then the lyrics, then the faint sound of them yelling at each other over the music, as if that somehow helps. And this wasn't normal loud music. This was music played by people who believe quiet hours are a vibe and not a rule. Bass heavy, soul rattling. Is this an earthquake or remix music? My dishes vibrated, my shelves creaked, my bed frame developed opinions. At 3 in the morning, I would lie there staring at the ceiling, listening to someone else's playlist and wondering how a person becomes so confident that no one else exists. I tried being normal about it first. I knocked on their door, I smiled, I said, "Hey, sorry to bother you. I live downstairs and the sound really carries." They looked surprised. Not apologetic surprised, just surprised that consequences had a physical form. Well, they apologized anyways and turned it down, and I slept for exactly one night. After that, the volume came back like it was offended I had noticed it. I escalated my politeness, which in hindsight was foolish, but at the time felt reasonable. I was nice, I shared some good devil's lettuce with them as a gift occasionally, if you know what I mean. Baked them things like banana bread cookies, the kind of baked goods that say, "Please see me as a person." They accepted all of it happily, they thanked me, and then continued to blast their music like I was an abstract concept. I left notes, polite ones with smiley faces on them, exclamation points used sparingly, but nothing. I even texted them once after they gave me their number, and they responded with a thumbs up emoji, which I think translates roughly to "cool story, bro." When I mentioned the complex quiet hours, they laughed and said, "Yeah, but everyone does it." And this is an important sentence because it tells you everything you need to know about them. Not that the rule was unclear or unfair or inconvenient, but that they simply didn't believe that it applied to them. I did my best to get the landlords to do anything, but it appeared that I would be required to do something about it myself. The leasing office was polite in the way that suggests they have dealt with this kind of person many times. They said, "We'll remind them of the policy and we'll send a notice, but please let us know if it continues." Well, guess what? It continued. So I documented. I put down dates, times, and duration. I put down the audio clips, mostly for my own sanity, so I could play them back later and confirm that yes, this was real and not some kind of stress hallucination. I emailed every incident calmly and consistently, like a deeply boring ghost. The entitled people upstairs responded by becoming louder, stomping, shouting, playing music earlier and later. Sometimes they would do it on Tuesdays, which feels very targeted. They argued loudly, they made up loudly, and had friends over who also shouted loudly because apparently volume is contagious. I learned more about their lives than I wanted to. I learned that entitlement often travels in packs. At one point, they knocked on my door to tell me to stop complaining. They said they pay rent too, as if rent includes a subwoofer endorsement. They told me that if I didn't like noise, then I shouldn't live in an apartment, which is a wild thing to say to someone living underground beneath them. Things came to a head on Thursday night. I remember because I had work the next morning and hope in my heart, which was a mistake. The music started around 10 o'clock. By midnight, it was at a war volume, and around 1 o'clock in the morning, shouting joined in. Not party shouting, but sharp, angry shouting. A new girlfriend was involved. I know this because I've not yet memorized her voice. Doors slammed, something broke, and the music cut off abruptly, which somehow made the yelling feel louder. Then sirens, red and blue lights flickering through my tiny window like a rave sponsored by Consequences. And it's right at this moment the cops showed up. Their clipboards came out, and all the voices dropped into that tight, controlled register that people use when they realize things have gone way too far. This is when my brain did a small but meaningful click, because I remembered something important. Police involvement violates the lease. Noise complaints are one thing, but police visits are another. Entitled people rarely believe rules apply to them them until uniforms are involved. Now, I didn't insert myself. I did not exaggerate. Instead, I simply logged what happened like I always did, and I waited. The next morning, I emailed the leasing office with a factual and calm email, and I attached my documentation mentioning the police presence. I didn't accuse or editorialize. I let the facts sit there and do the heavy lifting. Well, things moved very quickly after that. The entitled people got a warning, and then another one, and then a notice. The music stopped for a week, and I slept like the dead, which felt unfairly luxurious. Then it came back, cautious at first like a child testing boundaries, and then full force again because they genuinely believed they would get away with it. But I kept documenting every stop, every late night baseline, every violation. I sent weekly summaries. I used bullet points. I was a nightmare, but a polite one. They confronted me again, accused me of being uptight, of ruining their fun, of not understanding apartment living. I told them I understood it perfectly, and that was the problem. The final straw came with another argument, another girlfriend, another visit from the police. By this point, the leasing office had a file thick enough to qualify as light reading. And yes, finally, they were evicted. The night they moved out felt silent in a way that felt unreal. I sat on my couch with a book and a sense of peace. They say entitled people never think consequences will actually happen to them, and they are usually right until they're not. I slept 8 uninterrupted hours. I woke up refreshed and slightly feral. The spiders approved. The lesson here is not be vindictive. It is understand that entitlement thrives when people assume no one will push back. Document. Know the rules better than the people breaking them. Be boring, but be relentless. Entitled people rely on everyone else being too tired to care. And while I definitely was tired, I also cared anyways. And somewhere, I hope they are explaining to a new landlord how unfair it all was, completely unaware of the irony. Okay, I love this so much because I've been in this situation where I've had crappy neighbors who are crazy loud, and oh my gosh, getting to sleep for the first time after they leave is like manna from heaven. It is so nice. Because dude, they're gone. The noisemakers are out of the building. They've been evicted, and for now, you're free from any kind of like weird attitude. Like, my god, I feel sorry for the original poster, and I know exactly what they're talking about. This kind of situation is obnoxious to deal with, and I would not wish it on my worst enemy. So good for you for putting these people in their place in a roundabout way, and for showing them that you are not going to be pushed over when they push back, because the way they were acting is completely unacceptable and they deserve to get evicted. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I overreacting by not wanting my mother-in-law to ever meet my newborn child? Because after she spent so much time lying about me, she finally crossed the line by saying that my child isn't actually my husband's, as she was heavily implying that I cheated on him. And at this point, I'm so devastated that I simply don't want her in my life anymore, and I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake by saying this. Here's what happened. To start things off, I'm Asian and my husband is Caucasian. We've been married for over a year, but together for about 7. Now, it's important to note that his mom never liked me because I'm not white. She always thinks that I'm with my husband for his money. Not that he's rich anyways. I mean, he's just a hardworking man and he's smart with his spending. After 4 years of doing long distance, I decided to leave my friends, my family, and my career, and I moved to his country. He was living at his mom's grandma flat and paid rent. He offered to pay more rent to cover the water and electricity bills when I moved in, but his mom refused to do so. Well, 6 months in, she started to complain about the bills, so he offered the extra rent again, but she still said no. At that time, I wasn't allowed to work legally as I was still waiting for my residency visa, but I never spent money on myself because I feel bad that I couldn't contribute financially. Even my husband had to force me to buy something that I like. Long story short, his mom told everyone that I was lazy, did nothing all day, that I was useless, and taking advantage of her son. In fact, we found out about this from one of our family friends that didn't believe anything she was saying and decided to ask us about it directly. Well, my husband told her off, and soon enough, we were looking for our own place. But luck just so happened to be on our side. We found a rental place, my residency got approved, and I got a job all within like 2 months. I then stopped any communication with her since we moved out, and my husband talked to her anytime we had to. Well, a year after that, we found out that she's been telling everyone that I make spicy content online, if you know what I mean, and according to her, that's why I have income. Well, my husband told her off again and cut her off completely until we're about to get married. But despite everything she's done, we still felt it was the right thing to do to invite her anyways. But she didn't come to the wedding wedding because it was in my home country. After a long journey of trying to get pregnant, I had to go through IVF, and we are finally going to be parents halfway through this year. Unfortunately, our excitement just got disturbed by her again. This time, she's telling everybody that it's not even my husband's child. This hurt my feelings so bad that I told my husband I do not want her anywhere near our child ever. He said it upsets him that our child will miss having a grandparent that lives close by, but he also understands my decision. So did I overreact for the things that I did, or do I have the right to make this decision? Because right now I'm honestly so pissed off that I don't know what to do. Okay, the second this lady said you made spicy content and that your child is actually somebody else's and not your husband's, like that for me would have been the last straw, and I would never talk to this lady ever again. That is so reprehensible and disgusting, there's no excuse for that. She's clearly only doing this because you're not white, and that's already messed up in and of itself. But for her to literally make up lies about you and try to be like, oh yeah, this is what they're doing, painting you as some kind of horrible person, like that is unacceptable. And in my opinion, it absolutely justifies you cutting her off completely. So no, you did not overreact. If my mom acted like that towards my spouse, I would lose my mind and feel the exact same way. So in my opinion, I think you're completely justified. My brother is having an out-of-state, child-free wedding and is now upset that I won't be coming along because I have 2 kids of my own that I simply can't leave behind, and I don't have the money available to get childcare that I could trust. And at this point, I don't know if I'm the jerk for choosing not to go to the wedding because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so my brother lives in another state, which is like an 18-hour drive or a 3.5-hour flight for us from where we're at. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I was told that they would not be invited to the wedding at all, including the rehearsal dinner, the ceremony, and the reception. Now, I have no childcare options, and I would never feel comfortable leaving them with a stranger in an unfamiliar city in a hotel. Obviously, I had to decline the invitation, and I told my brother there was no way for me to attend his wedding because I had nowhere for the kids to go. My brother was upset and responded, just get a babysitter. And obviously, he doesn't have kids and doesn't understand that it just isn't that simple. I then told him that it was his wedding, and he has to do what he wants to do, but that excluding his niece and nephew was ultimately also excluding me. So I'm hurt by his decision. I don't intend to change his mind, and even if he did, I would no longer feel welcome, but this does hurt. My brother is now upset that I'm not attending the wedding, and upset that I'm hurt by his decision to exclude my children. This is my only sibling, and I thought we were close. We've visited him several times, and my kids have always behaved. In fact, we've always been invited back, but I guess this time we're just not allowed to be there. So am I the jerk for not being able to go to this wedding and being upset by this? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, I don't think you're the jerk at all because I think you've got it right. Your brother absolutely has every right in the world to be like, okay, I don't want kids at my wedding, so that means your kids can't be there. But in that same vein, so do you. Like, you have a right to be upset about this and be like, okay, I'm not leaving my kids behind, so no, I'm not going to be there. In my opinion, you are just as justified as he is when it comes to his decision about his wedding. And it's so funny that he's trying to be like, oh, come on, we're family. Just get a babysitter and show up anyways. It's not that big of a deal. Like, dude, we're talking about a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. Leaving them for like a weekend is going to be a nightmare. That's going to be a huge disruption of like their patterns and like all the things they want to do. And you want to sit there and be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, no, it really is that big of a deal. You can't just do that and expect nothing to go wrong. So no, you're not the jerk for saying you're not going to go, and you're definitely not the jerk for being hurt by this. Like, I could understand if your kids were like loud and obnoxious, but if anything, it kind of seems like he's being preventative about something that isn't a problem. And that really sucks because it means that you're not going to show up, and this is literally not your fault. Today, I met my boyfriend's work wife for the first time, and after the way I saw her act around my boyfriend, I'm honestly devastated and I'm questioning everything, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. So I've been with my boyfriend for 5 years now, and he's been at his current job for a few years now. We will call him Jake for the sake of the story. I've never met any of his coworkers until last night, but there's one in particular who I will call Amy for the sake of the story as well. Now, Jake sometimes does favors for Amy, like fixing her car, going to her house to fix stuff around her house, etc. And I was never really concerned because he told me all of his coworkers are a lot older than him. However, one night while he was asleep, his guy friend kept blowing up his phone. So I answered to let him know that Jake was sleeping, and so was I. So please stop calling. Anyways, before I put the phone down, I noticed 5 unread text notifications from Amy. I guess some of the spam notifications were from her, and one of the messages said, "Great, Jake. Now everyone thinks that we're sleeping together." And I gotta be honest, this one really concerned me. So the next day after Jake got home from work, I asked him him about it. He said that both him and Amy were late for work that morning, so everyone probably assumed that, and it was just a joke according to him. Now, I thought it was a weirdly unprofessional joke, and I expressed my discomfort with it. So he invited me to the bar with him and his coworkers that night so that I could meet her and see it was nothing to worry about. Well, it did not soothe my nerves at all. It turns out Amy is not a lot older than him. She's only like 3 years older, and she's incredibly pretty. The entire night she was all over him, touching him and leaning on him, putting her arms around him, and even kissed him on the cheek, and he acted like it was normal. They were constantly teasing each other in that middle schooler who doesn't know how to properly flirt yet kind of way. She told me all about how she loves him like a brother, and also told me that she slept with like half of their other coworkers, and that she got the next morning off of work because she sent a coworker some dirty pictures to get him to cover for her. Later on, she started crying and sobbing at the bar, like actual tears, because apparently she's so lonely and wants someone to love her, and my boyfriend ended up being the one to comfort her. So now I'm just honestly unsure what to do or say. My boyfriend kept acting like this was normal, that he wasn't doing anything wrong by entertaining this behavior. I can't ask him to like cut her off. I mean, they're on the same unit and they have to work together. Like, I literally don't know what to do about this, but I'm just disgusted knowing that this has all been going on for the years that he's worked with her. So seriously, how can I set boundaries when they're like forced to be around each other all the time at work? What should I do? Okay, first things first, this is incredibly sketchy. Like, your boyfriend is literally touchy-feely with this woman, and he's completely okay with it. He's not making any objection to her literally cuddling up next to him and kissing him on the cheek. So your gut instinct of being like, this is weird, is absolutely spot on. That is some sketchy behavior, and that's not okay. Like, that is not indicative of a boyfriend who's loyal to his girlfriend, especially with this Amy lady. Like, if she can admit that she's willing to sleep with half of her coworkers and send dirty pictures to another coworker just so he can cover her for work, then I can only imagine what she would try to do or say behind closed doors when no one's around. Like, my God, this is some sketchy behavior. And if I'm being completely honest, and a lot of people in the comment section agree with this, Jake is essentially treating Amy as if it's another girlfriend in his life. And this is only the behavior you're seeing in person. And Amy seems like she's being so performative in some way. Like, she's saying all this stuff just to try and get a rise out of you or like get under your skin. Because what is she really saying here? Oh yeah, she slept with like half her coworkers, which is probably making you wonder, well, wait, has my boyfriend done that with Amy? Like, that was a very purposeful response, and she probably did that on purpose just to either mess with you or as some kind of like hint that, yeah, they are sleeping together and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, if I saw my significant other get kissed by someone from work and that same person is described as their work spouse, I would lose my mind. I would be like, why are you letting this happen? This is not okay with me. I don't want my girlfriend, or boyfriend in this case, letting someone else kiss them on the cheek like that. Like, that's messed up. That's only something that I can do. Like, we are a couple after all, right? Because this really does cross so many professional boundaries, dude. This is not okay. So I think if you did have some kind of boundary that you can set with Jake in regards to Amy, I would say, and this is just me speaking, that, hey, if she ever kisses you again, I'm breaking up with you. Like, I would personally set that hard line in the sand because there's no way I would ever let that slide, because that is unacceptable. So no, your gut instinct is right. This truly is a sketchy situation, and I would be very suspicious of this woman moving forward, especially when it comes to how she interacts with your boyfriend. Would I be the jerk if I denied my newly found half-sister on my father's side any access to my mom, who is absolutely not related to her? Because after the years of my mother dealing with the fact that my father cheated, this all feels like it's just a train wreck waiting to happen. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so this is a bit complicated, but please just bear with me. Recently, a girl reached out to me via Facebook explaining that she is my half-sister, conceived by my father and another woman. She explained that her mother recently came clean to her regarding her father, that she was the result of a one-night stand with a guy she met during a work trip. Before she was told that, she was the biological kid of her stepfather. She didn't find our father online, but she found me thanks to our very uncommon surname. Well, after a bunch of messages, we set up a video call to talk, and she explained that she was very excited to connect with her real family, but not just with my father's side, but also with my mother's side. Now, we are both similar in age, with me being 25 and she being 23, so with that in mind, my father clearly cheated on my mom with this other girl's mom. But there's no surprise there, as he had tons of affairs during the marriage, which is why they divorced almost 2 decades ago. I'm also not surprised that I have a half-sister that exists, as my father told me himself years ago when I was grilling him about the cheating, that he most likely has a bunch of affair kids out there, because according to him, oh, that's just how men are. Well, I was open with her, and I told her that I'm no contact with my paternal family, because not only do they condone the cheating and blame my mom for it, they also are extremely toxic in general. hospital. There is a lot to say about my paternal family, by the way, but to keep it concise, I told her I could give her their contact information, but she should keep her expectations low because they are all pretty terrible people, and she won't be seen as a long-lost daughter coming home. But me saying that led to her asking about my maternal family, to which I told her that they are amazing people and that my mom is great. She then got excited and said that she can't wait to connect with my mom, and when she said that, I'm kind of stumped as to why I would let her do that. She is not related to my mom, and my parents divorced a long time ago. My mom is also since remarried. Also, the timing of this half-sister's conception coincides with the time when my mom miscarried my younger brother, something that obviously hurt her a lot. So knowing that, on top of knowing that my father was cheating on her during this time, is another can of worms that I truly don't know if I want to open up. I told my half-sister that I would ask my mom if she's okay with connecting with her, but I really just don't think I should ever bring this up to her. All of this just seems so weird to me, and I don't even know if this half-sister is even a good person, or if she has some sort of like ulterior motive for wanting to know my mom. She couldn't even give me a good reason as to why she would want that, just that my mom is my family and thus also hers. I'm leaning towards not mentioning this to my mom and giving my dad's information, but my best friend said that I'm a jerk for keeping my mom to myself, and that I shouldn't make this decision for my mom. So would I be the jerk if I didn't really mention anything to my mom at all? Because this entire situation is a little messed up and I just don't know what to do next. Okay, in my opinion, there's no way in the world I would ever tell my mom about this. You mean to tell me the affair child on your father's side is reaching out, saying she wants to meet up with your mom and talk to her, instead of the father that like is the reason this all happened? Like, holy crap, this is like a nightmare waiting to happen. Because think about it for a second, this is not your mom's kid. Your mom went through an absolute nightmare having her husband cheat on her over and over again, so I'm pretty sure the last thing she wants to deal with is one of those kids as a result of that cheating, reaching out and trying to be like, oh, we're a family. Like, I don't know, that would really piss me off, and I just don't think that's gonna be good for anybody. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your friends are wrong, and I think you have the right mindset to try and protect your mom, because this entire situation seems a little bit backwards, and I just don't think it's a good idea. My father's entitled psycho girlfriend completely cuts off the family after my father has a serious medical emergency, forcing him to be in the hospital for a week, while also leaving all of us in the dark. And after navigating this entitled Karen for so many years, me and the rest of this family are fed up with this woman. And right now, we're honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad has this longtime girlfriend who I will call Big Peach. And trust me, this is the biggest Karen you will ever meet in your life. She's got a fake tan, she's got pink hair, and she has the general resemblance to a giant peach. She is absolutely awful. My siblings and I hate her, and frankly, the feeling is definitely mutual. She lies, manipulates, and boundary stomps, all while trying to keep up this fake too sweet act where she would say, oh, I'm not trying to be a bother. And trust me, this is a very long situation and story. So anyway, 6 years in, and she's still pulling her stunts and getting away with it. But I've come to accept that dad is happy for some reason, and I have found ways to see him without her. But this particular series of events was way too much. I'm honestly fed up, and this is the last straw for me and my sisters. Now, for a bit more context, my dad was helping a friend do some work on a roof, and he actually fell. The scaffolding broke underneath him, and he fell 2 stories. An ambulance was called, and the friend went with him to the hospital. For some reason, the first person he called was Big Peach. She's been trouble ever since then. He apparently feels awful both for the accident and the drama our family is still experiencing. We didn't have much information for the first couple of days, since Big Peach kept as much from us as she could. She only contacted my younger sister about what happened, completely downplaying everything. My sister explained that Big Peach had told her that dad had broken his shoulder after a fall, but it wasn't serious, that there was nothing that we could do, and that we shouldn't even bother coming to the hospital as she has his phone, so don't bother calling him, and to tell me that he won't be home anytime soon. And for reference, I live with him, but my sisters do not. And my little sister was really alarmed at that last point. She kept messaging about when will dad get his phone back, and for the number to the ward that my dad was staying in at the hospital. But Big Peach refused to give her any of that information. She kept telling her he's fine, he'll be home by Monday. My little sister had to make a WhatsApp group with me and my middle sister just so all of us could try and get something out of her. Well, Big Peach couldn't keep it up in front of a crowd and eventually gave the name of the hospital and what ward he was in. And oh yeah, he's probably getting emergency surgery because he broke a bit more than just his shoulder. He went up on Saturday and we only got this information on Monday. So basically, if we weren't panicking before, we most definitely were now. We arranged for the three of us to go up on Tuesday to see him, all while Big Peach kept messaging us, trying to say how many of us can see him, trying to control when we're going, because she's going at this certain time so we can't go then. And again, all with the lies. She insisted she tried calling my little sister on Saturday night, but my sister has no missed calls from that time. She apparently tried coming to the house the same night to get some things, but I had the door bolted so she couldn't get in. And being the saint that she is, Big Peach didn't want to wake me up. It was bolted, it's something that I always do before bed when I'm home alone, except I was awake for most of the night with worry, and I never heard a car or anything from the door, and my bedroom is opposite the front door. Also, the dog goes bananas when she hears cars outside, you know, just like dogs do, and she was quiet all night, but Big Peach was totally there apparently. But then there was my grandparents. I called them to see how they were before we left on Tuesday, and guess what? No one had told them. Big Peach had gone in person that morning to tell them, all tears and needing them to comfort her. She told us on Saturday that Grandma and Grandpa knew and weren't going to bother coming up because he only broke his shoulder, so we shouldn't bother coming up either. And again, this is all just total lies. Anyways, I found this out on the phone with them on Tuesday, and naturally they're pissed off, and they're on their way up there at the same time as us, since they only just found out about it. My grandfather explained that he had actually called Big Peach on Saturday, just a casual call, asking how things were, what they're up to, etc. And she told them that they were at home watching TV. She told him that she didn't want to worry them, that they deserve to be told in person because isn't she so good like that? And she gave the impression that we already knew what was going on. They were angry that none of us thought to tell them, but I explained that Big Peach told us they did know, and that we only found out about the full story the night before after her insisting on us not coming up to visit him. So I said we'd meet them at the hospital and share everything we knew so far. We got to the hospital and see Dad is way more upbeat than we imagined. His head's cut up and he has a black eye, and he could barely move through the pain that he was in. No exaggeration, he looked dead when we walked in. I brought a bag of things for him from home, and my sisters brought food and drink, but all of it was useless to him in that state. He couldn't read books, he couldn't eat, he could barely drink on his own. It was seriously scary to see. And he's fallen off roofs and hurt himself before, but he's never been left like this. The responders and the friend he was helping thought that he was dead after the fall, or was going to die in the ambulance because he was unconscious for ages. When we finally got talking to him, he told us the story, and we realized how little he knew of what was going on. He just knew he was in the hospital and had to get surgery to fix him. He also didn't know that Big Peach had his phone, and that fact seemed to really alarm him actually. He didn't know his family was left in the dark until that morning. He wasn't even sure why Big Peach was handling everything. He has me as his emergency contact, not her, and that fact is what made us all even more on edge. When my grandparents arrived, they had time to cool down and just wanted to see my dad. Now, there was a rule for how many visitors could be by the bed, so I swapped with my grandmother since she was most anxious to talk to him. In the hallway, my grandfather begged me not to be angry with Big Peach. He says that while she had been very stupid this entire time, she does make my dad happy, and to please just let it go for his sake. He and my grandmother hold no love for her either, but they still try for the sake of peace. Now, I made no promises and even told him that I can't forgive her for this, but I would try to not start fights with her because there's enough going on already. It was a quiet visit all in all. Well, that visit was anyways, because anytime one of us tried to visit after that, no matter the time of day, Big Peach was there. And you know what? She was pissed at the fact that someone other than her was visiting him in the hospital. We got the impression that she was trying to be the loving, doting girlfriend, but didn't like the fact that there are other loved ones that were ready and willing to help out too. Like it somehow ruined her fantasy. She wanted to be the one to help him out and nobody else. My middle sister hypothesized some form of Munchausen syndrome. She's lied about studying to be a nurse for years, and a couple of years back, she did the same thing to her mother when she needed aid after she got her hip replaced. But that didn't last a week though. Big Peach got fed up with the fact that the poor woman needed food brought to her in bed, needed help getting to the toilet, you know, things that someone who's struggling to stand or walk would need help with. So she eventually sent her mother off to live with her sister because apparently she couldn't stand being treated like a servant. So I'm honestly not sure what she was expecting. For bells to ring and for her to get wings, for crowds to sing her praises, and for her to be declared a saint above saints. Now, I don't agree with the Munchausen syndrome idea, but I do agree that all this nonsense is all about attention. Now, I just want to say thank God for the nurses. They took great care of my dad for us, and I'm very grateful for them. I brought them boxes of cookies the last couple of times I was able to visit, and I don't know if it was appropriate, but they seemed very thankful. Now, the last I visited before my dad came home, Big Peach tried to cause drama with them too. I got there a bit before visiting time, but the nurses were happy to let me see my dad since I was alone, and I was there for I think half an hour before Big Peach showed up. I had braced myself to endure her for the full visit, but after 5 minutes, she announced that she needed the toilet and then walked off. She was back after maybe a minute, saying that she couldn't find it, and a few seconds later, a very tired nurse comes over and asks me to put on a mask or leave. And sure, I wasn't wearing one, but guess what? Neither was anybody else. Not the other visitors and not the nurses. Only Big Peach was wearing one. And of course, I apologized and I was happy to put the one on that I kept in my handbag, but even Dad commented on how weird it was that they only asked me after I had already been there for a while. Well, Big Peach said nothing and just stared at me. My dad didn't catch on, but it was obvious that she had excused herself to complain to the nurse about my bare face. And it's honestly like, okay, screw you, lady. While my dad was in the hospital, my sisters and I spent all week cleaning the house, as well as his room, and just getting ready for him to come home. I even replaced the broken toilet seat and fixed the damaged wall in the bathroom. My middle sister actually went all out and got new bed sheets and pillows and a duvet because the old ones were filthy beyond help. My middle sister also kept raging at the amount of pink hair she was cleaning up because, of course, Big Peach sheds worse than any animal we've ever owned. It is seriously disgusting. I pointed out that this is what I'm constantly dealing with, but no one ever believes me. The worst part of that is that she doesn't even live with us. This is just the result of her staying weekends. Dad actually came home way earlier than we expected. He's miles better than he was the week before, but still not well enough to be home. The friend who was with him when he fell was supposed to drive him since he has a Jeep with loads of space for him to be comfortable. And that would have happened except Big Peach got involved. If I had to guess, she probably had a childish temper tantrum. She stomped her foot and probably said, "No, I'm driving him. He's my boyfriend. I don't care what you say." And of course, I can only speculate, but that's what I imagine would probably have happened. Big Peach walked straight up to the door and went for the spare key, even though I know she saw me through the window. Well, I opened the door for her, thinking that she must be here for a change of clothing for my dad, but she storms in and says, "Oh, he's coming in the back," and then nothing else. Now, I didn't know what she was talking about, so I just let her fight the two back doors. And for reference, they are impossible to open unless you've lived with them. Eventually, she gets them unlocked and I prop them open after she storms back outside. She then got my half-dressed dad in and threw him in one of the chairs in the kitchen while I was putting the bin out since I was outside anyways. I was alarmed when I saw him and he was obviously in a lot of pain again, more than what we saw in the hospital. I didn't know he was coming home, but I was glad the house was ready for him. But clearly, Big Peach was not. Fortunately, all Dad wanted was a decent cup of coffee after a week of hospital food, and I happily obliged as I sat with him. Meanwhile, Big Peach was stomping about the house, trying to find things that are wrong and getting more annoyed that nothing is. At this point, she's bringing bags into the house, and she's doing this through the front door for some reason, even though she's parked by the back. Now, for a bit of context, we have a rule where we basically say keep the doors closed or keep the dog closed in a room because we are next to a very busy road. Well, Big Peach has ignored this rule in the past and only stopped after I said I would hold her head under the wheel of a bus if something happened to my dog, all because she was too stupid and lazy. Well, she apparently forgot this rule while bringing stuff into the house, so I had to rush to close the dog in before she got out. Now, I thought that this was the stuff that Dad had in the hospital, and maybe like his medications or something like that, but there were so many bags. But then I realized she is literally moving herself in. All those shopping bags were filled with her stuff and little to nothing of Dad's. Dad has not even given her a key to the house, and he looked utterly miserable at the sight of her carrying all that stuff in. He definitely wants her to go home, and she's clearly doing whatever the heck she wants. Since Dad was settled in the kitchen and wanted to wait before trying to go to bed, he asked me to turn the kitchen TV on so that he could see it, and then to leave him with a remote because he didn't feel like talking. I then instructed Big Peach in a very serious way to leave Dad where he is and to call me when he was ready to go upstairs. I then retreated to my room and updated my sisters on the situation. Well, after about an hour, I heard them at the stairs, which are outside my bedroom door. I went out and lo and behold, Big Peach is trying to drag my dad and his crutches up the stairs. I didn't try to help right away since the staircase is narrow, and that could cause a more dangerous situation, but I did watch them closely, and I was there for starters to jump in if they needed help, and secondly, I trust Big Peach about as far as I can throw her off a cliff. And you know what? I'm glad I was watching. My dad was struggling up the stairs, all while Big Peach was grabbing the back of his shirt and pulling him backwards. Even I know this is not how you help someone up the stairs. My grandmother, so my mom's mom, lived with us for a wee bit before she passed away, and all of us learned that you hold their arm gently and you put your hand on their back and support them as best you can. Even though honestly, I think this should be obvious. The original plan my sisters and I had was to get my dad upstairs to bed and give him some more time to heal before trying to get him back downstairs. His room has an in-suite suite, and we planned to use the upstairs hallway to get his exercises and crutch practice done. The idea was to minimize stress and pain for Dad. I even got a little kettle for his room so he could have coffee without anyone having to go downstairs. Well, Big Peach didn't agree to any of this. She forced Dad to go up and down the stairs every day when she wanted and not when he was ready. The three of us tried to talk to them about it, but she insisted that it was good for him and that it's not nice to keep him upstairs. And you know what? My dad was too sore to disagree with her. And it's like, fine, I couldn't stop them, but I made sure that I watched them every single time. I felt sick and a little frightened. Maybe I've watched one too many scary documentaries, but I didn't want to leave them alone in the house. And honestly, this ended up probably saving my dad's life. On the third night, she was helping him upstairs, and he lost his balance and started to fall backwards because, as I said, she was pulling on the back of his shirt. I rushed up the stairs as soon as I saw him start to wobble, and I caught him just in time. Adrenaline must have been going through me because my dad is a lot bigger than me, and I still managed to get him back upright. Well, Big Peach was staring at us with wide eyes and slack jaw. I then elbowed her out of the way, and I safely got my dad back up the rest of the stairs and into bed, after which I did lecture her on how dangerous what she was doing really is, and what the correct, comfortable, and most importantly safe way to help someone up the stairs really is. I wasn't trying to be mean or nasty to her, but that was an extremely scary thing to see, and I never wanted that to happen again, which probably affected my tone. Now, to be fair to Big Peach, she was trying up to that point. I had only started a new job 2 weeks before, and I couldn't take time off to help. She vacuumed the floor, she did the dishes, and she made meals. But mostly, she sat and watched TV, but at least she did something. The meals she made were frozen meals that were hot on the outside, yet still cold on the inside. And while I'm not sure how she did that, I am still grateful and always made sure to thank her when she made dinner for me. Well, with all that being said, after the incident on the stairs, however, she stopped altogether, and instead, she just watched TV all day. I started helping Dad up and down the stairs because he did want to be in his favorite chair in the kitchen rather than in bed. I made dinner for everyone after work in the evenings. I made Dad coffee and lunch while cleaning the house on my days off, and my middle sister works basically across the road from the house, so she could check on him while I was at work during the day, with my younger sister coming on her days off and would do what she could. But what about Big Peach, you might be asking? Well, nothing. She watched TV all day and didn't speak a word to anyone. I came home from work once and Dad immediately begged me to take him upstairs to the toilet. He's been desperate to go number one for a couple of hours, but apparently Big Peach couldn't hear him over the TV in the living room, which by the way is next door to the kitchen. There were then 3 more days of this before she packed up her things and went home. And this is because apparently we were all so ungrateful to her, and the fact that she took time off to help us out, even though no one asked her to do anything. And seriously, apart from the stairs thing, she was actually being helpful in other ways like the cooking and cleaning. I never forbade her from doing anything when I talked to her about the stair thing, but she acted like I did in some kind of way. I didn't even say that she couldn't help Dad up the stairs, just that she had to do it the right way so that he wouldn't fall. I never said a thing when she didn't tell us about Dad going to the hospital, when she tried to keep us from visiting, when she told us so many lies to a lot of people, when she kept his phone so we wouldn't contact him, when she checked him out early so she could be the one to drive him home, when she moved herself in and took over the house. I mean, seriously, I never said a word to her because everyone, including my dad, had begged me and my sisters not to. And I did that to keep the peace and let her have her way because too much was going on already. But one talking about stair safety was out of line and just made her storm out? Like, are you kidding me right now? So my sisters and I took on more to make meals and get Dad to the toilet while also keeping the house in order, which by the way was the plan from the start. But with Big Peach's interference, we had to scramble to rearrange our schedules with work and back with our partners, all to what we had planned before, all on very short notice. So basically, it really was not fun. Big Peach also stayed away for about 2 weeks before going back to her routine of coming over for the weekends just so she can get some takeaway. She was icy to my dad and did not acknowledge me at all, which honestly suits me just fine, but Dad didn't like it. My grandma and grandfather visited when they could, but Grandma's health isn't great either, and they can't leave the house as often anymore. Dad's recovery was slow and painful. The painkillers did very little for him. He actually had to change doctors, get different medication, and try physiotherapy before anything really worked for him. All the while, Big Peach was giving him grief for how she was treated, and I seriously just cannot comprehend this woman at all. Even a year later, I keep thinking about what if he had passed away? How long would Big Peach have kept us in the dark? How much would she have tried to hijack and control then? It honestly really scares me. Now, I wrote most of this while most of it was still happening, but life got in the way. I never ended up posting anything online, but I've decided to post this now because guess what? It happened again last week. My dad had an accident in work which gave him a concussion. And again, some idiot from his work went to his phone and called his girlfriend instead of getting the information for his emergency contact that he has listed, which by the way, that person is me. He was unconscious for a few minutes, but they still sent him to the hospital after he came around. I honestly don't know what happened there because Big Peach at some point convinced him to message me saying that he was working late. And this is all in some effort so that I don't get worried apparently. But also this time, there was not a word sent to any of my sisters. Now, Dad sometimes works late when they have a big project going on, so I honestly didn't even question it that night. The next morning, Dad and me got up at the same time, and there was no Big Peach anywhere. I asked how work was the day before since he had got home after I went to bed, and that's when he told me that he was in the hospital with a concussion. This caught me completely off guard, and I freaked out when he briefly tells me what happened. And then he decides to tell me that he's going on holiday with Big Peach after the weekend. I told him he can't fly with a concussion, but he insists that he's going because he's already booked it, and Big Peach will be angry if he cancels it. I argued with him all week on it, but I did drop it after a scan of the hospital told him that he was all good. I had to not give him a choice on letting me take him to the hospital, Big Peach or no Big Peach. He has promised me that he'll keep me updated on what he's doing, and that if he doesn't feel well, he says that it's okay because he'll have Big Peach with him to look after him. And I guess the concussion made him forget the last time Big Peach actually looked after him. So as of right now, yeah, they're away. I at least have a quiet house for the week, and I'm still paranoid about my idiot dad and his selfish, idiotic girlfriend. Her general awfulness and my dad's stubbornness about staying with her has broken this family more than it already has. My sisters barely talk to Dad anymore. Big Peach is not welcome at either of their homes. The rest of the family has completely cut contact with him, and my grandparents and I are exhausted with the constant drama with them. And undoubtedly, there is more drama and the worst drama to come, because one of my sisters just got engaged, and Big Peach is already trying to hijack the entire thing. But I'm honestly so sick of Big Peach, and I seriously do not want to deal with her any longer. Wow, this is a heck of a story, like seriously. First of all, Big Peach is a hilarious name, because the entire time I was reading through this, I was like, wow, that really gives a serious visual. But also, my God, why is your dad staying with this lady? She sounds like a nightmare, a living, walking nightmare who is tearing this family apart. It is seriously so disturbing the way she handled both of these hospital visits. The first one was clearly way worse than the second one, but seriously, both times she just completely left the family in the dark. And you're right, you literally hit the nail on the head. What if your dad passed away? What if he died and nobody knew about it? Like, how long would that go on? Would she have a funeral and then tell you after the fact? I can't stand dealing with toxic partners of my family members who seriously feel it's their job to control the narrative of what is and isn't happening with someone's health. I know I've got a few of those in my family, and hopefully you don't, because seriously, it is a nightmare. It's like dealing with Big Peach all the time and you can never get rid of them. And that's especially true when you're related to them, like that's a whole different can of worms. But the way Big Peach acted, in my opinion, is like the ultimate form of entitlement that seriously is so weird. She's taking a tragedy and trying to latch herself onto it in some kind of way so that she's the one that can control the flow of information. And that is a massive red flag. Like, how does your dad not see that this lady is not a good person? She did nothing to help out in the hospital. She was actively antagonistic towards his daughters. And when your dad's finally home, she's doing nothing to help out. Like, literally nothing. Like, she basically tried to push him down the stairs every time she supposedly helped him up the stairs. Like, this is so weird. So truly, to the original poster, I am so sorry you have to deal with Big Peach. She sounds like a piece of garbage, and she really does sound like a narcissist. Not to mention the fact that she is super entitled and just begging for attention. And the fact that she tried to use your dad's medical emergencies as a way of gaining that attention, that in my opinion is so messed up, and you guys absolutely did not deserve that. Am I the jerk for not refunding my friend $600 after she bailed on our group trip literally 3 days before we were actually going on vacation? Because instead of being honest with us, she claimed that she couldn't go because her grandmother was in the hospital, but in reality, she went on vacation with her boyfriend instead, duping all of us in the process. So right now, I'm honestly incredibly offended, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and my friends and I all decided to go on a ski trip for 12 days over winter break. We found a place to stay, and all in all, it was around $600 per person for the rental, and we decided it was just easiest to have one person, namely me, put all the money up front and just everyone pay me back before the actual trip, which everybody did. In my friend group, we have a girl that we will call Sarah. Sarah comes from a comfortable family and was even one of the people who suggested the trip and was one of the leading forces to finding the Airbnb. And literally, in the weeks leading up to the trip, we were all fine, sending outfit ideas, restaurants to book, etc. But the Tuesday before we left, Sarah starts sending text messages to the group chat saying stuff like, "Guys, my boyfriend's family is going on vacation vacation next week, and basically was sending a lot of details about where his family is going for winter vacation, and it was all stuff that we really didn't need to know. Then on Thursday, as we were leaving on Saturday, she sends a text to the group chat saying how she couldn't go because she had a family emergency, claiming that her grandmother had gotten admitted to the hospital. Now, we were obviously bummed out, but family comes first, and I told her that I would send her the money back that she sent towards the rental. So we go on the trip and everything's okay until one of my friends who has Sarah's location on Life 360, as they are roommates after all, sees that she's spending time in a beach town, and it's then that we put two and two together. Once we saw that, we spent the night pissed off, and we call her out the next day where she admits everything. She had been last minute invited on her boyfriend's vacation and decided that she wanted to go to that instead but didn't know how to tell us. We were all obviously hurt and upset that she would choose a boy over us, but at the end of the day, she is just a 19-year-old girl, so I guess it's just immaturity or something like that. Now, the part I'm wondering if I'm the jerk or not is that after finding out that she voluntarily pulled out of the trip, I had told her that I wouldn't be refunding her the $600 that she had sent me for the rental. She pulled out so last minute that we couldn't find anything cheaper, and I said it was okay just wasting that money because, again, I thought she was having a family emergency. Well, after finding out that she wouldn't be getting that back, she went insane and started calling me a bad friend and all this other stuff. Now, my parents think I should send it back to her, but I don't see why I should. She pulled out because of her boyfriend and somehow expected us to just absorb the cost of it. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk here. Sarah is completely out of line. She really tried to come to you and be like, oh, I have a family emergency. My grandmother's in the hospital. I can't go on vacation with you guys anymore. Like, what are you talking about? You lied about your grandma being sick. What is wrong with you? You're a terrible person. And by the way, she literally backed out days before the trip. You mean to tell me after all the time and energy you guys put into finding an Airbnb, as well as each paying $600? Like, are you kidding me right now? It's only after all of this that you're like, actually, I'm gonna lie to you and go on vacation with my boyfriend. Sorry. It's like, no, I'm not giving that money back. You're insane. Why should I have to spot the cost of you backing out and not planning your life properly? And it's so ironic to me that she's like, wow, you're not a good friend. You're a terrible person. And it's like, oh, well, it takes one to know one, lady. Like, look at the way you're acting. She's over here pretending her grandma's sick just to get out of vacation and then gets exposed and it's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you that I didn't want to go on vacation with my boyfriend. Oops, sorry about that. Give me my $600 back, please. It's like, no, if I was in your shoes, I would not give that money back for a second. That's the cost of doing business and for wasting my time. And on top of that, you know for a fact as the original poster, this is 100% coming out of your pocket. You're the one that paid for the Airbnb, so you're the one that's probably gonna have to give that money back in some kind of way. So yeah, your friend sucks, but trust me, this is not your problem. And at this point, I would even be hesitant calling her a friend in the first place, because the way she acted towards you is completely uncalled for, as you guys did not deserve this treatment in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for asking for my house keys back from my mom after she literally just let herself into my house while I was sleeping? Because after dealing with this behavior for years, I'm honestly at my breaking point and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So this happened yesterday where my mom just let herself into my house and walked into my bedroom at around 9 o'clock in the morning without any kinds of heads up that she's coming over, nor even asking if she could come over in the first place, or even knocking on the patio door that was open for my dog, and then just suddenly yelling in that she was there. Now, I'm a 36-year-old woman, and she just walked into my bedroom and proceeded to ask why I wasn't working from home yet, and after being told to leave, she pottered around in my kitchen cleaning stuff and attempted to fill up the second dog water bowl. Now, she has essentially OCD, and it drove me nuts when I was a child, but coming into my house and nitpicking everything is just unacceptable. I told her to leave multiple times, and after a good 5 minutes of that, I told her to get the F out as soon as possible. Well, she did not take kindly to that, but she also never takes kindly to me establishing boundaries. Her just walking in unannounced has happened around once every other month for the past couple of years, and my anxiety is off a cliff because of this and other personal stuff. I know she wants to help, but I am going insane over the intrusiveness. I'm having mental health problems, namely severe depression, anxiety, and chronic insomnia, which I've been working on all through 2024, and now I'm going to have a first appointment with a psychologist next week. I just want to know if I'm overreacting or underreacting, because this has been my whole life, overstepping, boundary-pushing parents. And don't even get me started on what happened in Mexico when I was 21, and she overstepped severely during my group holiday. She even tried to clean up my sink because it was not up to her standards, and I just honestly can't do it anymore. What should I do? Oh man, this is like unbelievable. You're seriously telling me your mom is coming into your house, kicking the door in and saying, "Why are you not up yet? What are you doing?" It's like, wait a second, what are you doing? You're in my bedroom and I'm half asleep. Why are you in my house? Like, this is a complete misuse of house keys. It's not even funny. So no, you're not the jerk for demanding those house keys back. If anyone who had access to my house acted like this, they would be banned forever. No question, no conversation, no nothing. There's no way I would ever put up with that, and I seriously don't blame you for putting your foot down. So in my opinion, I think you should just change your locks and go from there, or demand them back if you think she didn't make a copy of them. Because what she just did is like criminal. It really is not okay, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Would I be the jerk if I denied my neighbor's family access to my Wi-Fi after they literally knocked on my door at all hours of the night, demanding that I give them the password? Here's what happened. So me and my fiance live below an older guy in our apartment complex. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Doug, and he is super nice, kinda lonely, and has a really sweet little chihuahua. Now we have a pretty good relationship with him. I've helped him set up his cable and his new phone, made plates for him on nights that we had a little left over from dinner, helped him get his groceries from his car, and then some. Just normal neighborly stuff. Well, a couple of weeks ago, his daughter, son-in-law, and their 4 kids moved into his 2-bedroom apartment with him because they lost their home. He told my fiance that they would be staying with him until they got their taxes, and then hopefully they could find a place. Now that's a major break in the lease, but I've not said anything as I've been homeless before, and I understand how hard it is, especially with kids. All I've done is ask that he keeps his grandkids quiet past 9:00 p.m. as they've stomped and ran around and woke up me and my 2 kids multiple times, and so far he's managed to keep them quiet. Now his son-in-law, who he isn't a fan of, came down to our apartment a couple of days ago while I was at work and asked my fiance if he could use our Wi-Fi sometimes so that his wife could continue to homeschool their kids. Now she was caught off guard by the question, as we've never met the guy, we don't even know his name, and wasn't really expecting the question at 8 o'clock at night. She said she didn't know anything about the Wi-Fi, which was just kind of a way to run him off, stating that I handled all of it. He then asked when I would be home, and she told him 11:00 p.m., and he said, "Oh, that's way too late. I'll just come by tomorrow." And while my fiance advised him that he shouldn't, he did anyways. Last night at around 6:45, we had just sat down to eat dinner, and he comes knocking on our door. But I just ignore it, since I'm eating dinner and our 3-year-old has the flu, so he was extremely fussy. A couple of minutes go by and he knocks again, but again I just ignore it, as I'm eating dinner and I'm trying to get our 3-year-old to calm down and eat their food. I then wake up this morning to a note on the door asking if they could use our Wi-Fi since Doug doesn't have it, and his kids really need to continue their curriculum, but I have a feeling they just want to mooch off of our Wi-Fi. Also, his wife is a stay-at-home mom and has had plenty of opportunity to ask me when seeing me outside in passing. So honestly, would I be the jerk if I denied them this access? Because at this point, I am honestly incredibly annoyed. No, you would not be the jerk. This is honestly so toxic. First of all, you don't owe this guy anything. If he's really worried about his kids having homeschool curriculum, then he would pony up the money and get the Wi-Fi himself. And the fact that he's going to you is like honestly so weird in my opinion. Because if he actually cared about his kids, I don't know, getting the education that they need, he wouldn't be going to you and basically guilt-tripping you into saying yes. And I'm willing to bet those kids are not even homeschooled. He just wants the Wi-Fi password so he can, like you said, mooch off your Wi-Fi and use it whenever he wants. So no, you would not be the jerk for denying this idiotic neighbor any access to your internet. This guy is so stupid for doing this because in my opinion, you are not obligated to help him in any way, shape, or form. Am I the jerk for calling my best friend fat after she kept asking to borrow my clothing and then ruining my clothing by stretching it out in a way that was completely irreparable? Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I have a close friend who we will call Claire, who's also 25. We have been friends since 1st grade and we are very close. We often borrow things from each other, but things changed a few months ago. I treated myself to some expensive clothing after getting a bonus at work. I don't usually splurge, but I'd been balancing school and work and I felt like I deserved it. I let Claire know and she asked to come shopping with me. Now, I had no problem with this, and after I paid for the clothing, we left. Claire tried on a few things but didn't buy anything, saying that they were all too expensive. I didn't offer to buy them for her since I'd already spent most of my bonus on my clothing, and she already had a nice wardrobe. It's also important to mention that Claire is plus-sized and I am thin. And this isn't meant to fat shame, but it is relevant, because after I wore the clothes a few times, Claire started asking to borrow them. I hesitated at first, but I trusted her, so I just let her. Most of the clothing was oversized, so they fit her pretty well. She kept them a little longer sometimes, but everything seemed fine until she started taking them without asking. During sleepovers, I noticed that she would be leaving wearing wearing my tops or leggings, and I'd find them in her possession next time that we hung out. I brought it up several times, but her excuse was that she didn't mean to take them and that she thought that they were hers. When I got the clothing back, they were either stretched out or had busted seams. Now, me being a timid person, I didn't want to upset her, so I said nothing. Eventually, though, I asked her to please ask before borrowing any of my clothing, but she would always insist that it was an accident or say that I had so many clothes so it just didn't matter. So I just dropped the conversation to avoid a fight. And for a while, it seemed like she was listening, but then my favorite top went missing. She was wearing it when I saw her again, and it was completely stretched out and ruined. And sure, I was furious, but I didn't say anything. Then Claire asked to borrow one of my dresses for an event. This dress wasn't bought with bonus money, but I loved it. So I said no, and she seemed taken aback. She argued that the dress wasn't expensive and that it should be fine, but I still refused. She then got increasingly irritated, asking again and again, even calling me selfish. Finally, she suggested that if I had bought her a dress when we went shopping, she wouldn't need to borrow mine. And that right there was the tipping point. I told her that she was too big and was ruining all of my clothing, and maybe if she lost some weight, she could wear whatever she wanted from my closet without caring. Well, she left in tears, and now our friend group is split. Some understand my frustration, while others think I was wrong for saying what I said. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This is really obnoxious from Claire. The fact that she's taking clothing without asking, as well as stretching out said clothing while also implying that it getting ruined is your fault. Like, this is so stupid it's not even funny. Because seriously, what are we asking right now? Is she really implying that because you didn't buy her a dress, this is somehow your fault, so now she has to borrow yours? It's like, lady, you're too big to be wearing this clothing. I'm sorry if that offends you, but that's the truth. And you can even go back to the clothing that she's ruined and be like, look, you've busted the seams. And I totally understand where the original poster's coming from. You're not trying to fat shame or anything like that. This is literally just a situation where it's like, oh yeah, these are completely different sized people, and this bigger lady should absolutely stay away from this thin person's clothing. So no, you're not the jerk. This is so obnoxious, and I know if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the same thing. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling the rude postal worker that I dread coming to the post office all because of her? Because right now, I'm worried that I may have crossed the line, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I just recently decided to get my passport. First, I needed the photo, and then to apply for it, so I went to the post office. For a bit of backstory, I've been to this post office many times, and I'm often returning items at the post office. Now, there's this woman who works there at the post office who's maybe in her late 50s or early 60s, and she is kind of rude. Every time I've gone in, she has an attitude and acts as if the customers are inconveniencing her in some way. Like, she seriously seems so miserable. The very first time I ever went, I was 16 years old and I had no idea how to return an item, and she made me feel very stupid and embarrassed me in front of other customers. And it really hurt my feelings because I was being polite and asking for help. Even though she did that, and every time I go in, I smile and I tell her good morning and good afternoon. So anyways, I went in and I asked for just a passport photo because I didn't have the money yet to spend on the passport itself. I have a lot of money in my savings, but I wanted to wait until I had more in my checking account to buy it. She says to me, "Are you a first-time applicant?" To which I responded and said yes. And then she says, "Well, we can just take your photo once you do the application." Now, I was excited to take my picture this day because I'd done my makeup and spent a lot of time on it. So I said to her, "Well, I'd like to do my photo today if that's not an issue. I did do my makeup after all." Well, when I said that, she looks me up and down with a subtle look of disgust. She then says to me, "You don't want to just do it now when you come back?" And to that, I said no. She then sighed once again, and there were even people staring at me. She then calls another worker to the desk because she had to go take my picture, and I heard her say, "I don't understand these people." But once I heard that, I said to her, "You know what? It's okay. I'll go to Walgreens and take my photo there." She then comes back over and says, "I just said you can take it today." But I snapped back and said, "No, it seems like it's an inconvenience to you. Every time I come in here, you have a nasty attitude, and I don't look forward to having to come in here." I then ended up leaving before she could respond. So I took my photo at Walgreens and applied for an application at a post office in another city. And now I'm inclined to return my items at this other post office in another city, which is really going to be a pain. So seriously, am I the jerk with the way I handled this? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, you did not cross any lines, and you're definitely not the jerk here. That lady at the post office is a miserable human being, and that literally has nothing to do with you. I think we've all met our fair share of people who just suck at life, and they're pissed off about their situation or whatever, so they take it out on people who literally have done nothing wrong to them. These type of people seem to think they can say whatever they want and there's nothing that you can do about it, especially if they're bitter, older, and just a little bit jaded like the lady of this story. But in this situation, I think you did exactly what you should do. You stood up for yourself and you basically said, listen, I'm not going to be talked to this way. And I think you shouldn't stop there. I think you really should report her for the way she treated you and go above and beyond to make sure this lady knows that the way she acts is completely inappropriate. Because I know if I was in this situation, I absolutely would report her to whoever needs to hear it. Because this kind of behavior and attitude is not something that should be welcomed at any post office anywhere. And this is something that needs to be corrected much sooner than later. Am I the jerk for not letting my brother's girlfriend in the family photos that I was planning on taking? Because right now it's caused a lot of problems and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So every year for my birthday party, I always have a very specific dress code to make for cool photos. My family also, as a side note, usually uses a photo from this party as our Christmas card. For this year, I said I wanted my guests to wear black, my close friends and family to wear white, and then I was going to be wearing red. For a bit of context, I have 3 brothers, and I obviously invited all of these brothers and their wives and girlfriends to the party. Now, my eldest brother is married to his wife for almost 5 years, and they have 2 kids together. Although I'm not close to my sister-in-law because her and my brother live a few hours away, and even though I haven't spent much time with her, she's always been very nice and is obviously a part of the family, as she is married to my brother. Because of this, even though we're not close, she was obviously going to be wearing white. Now, my other brother is not married, but he's bringing his new girlfriend, who we will call Anna for the sake of the story. Her and I were roommates in college, and she is one of my closest friends. And I was beyond thrilled when her and my brother started dating because I was excited at the possibility of having her as a sister. My last brother has been dating a girl for about 3 years now. His girlfriend, who we will call Sarah for the sake of the story, wasn't expecting to wear white until she found out Anna was going to be wearing white as well. Sarah then confronted me and was basically enraged that Anna was wearing white, even though she had only been with my brother for a few months, while Sarah was dating my older brother for many years. I calmly explained to Sarah that I understand why she feels this way, but I also stated that Anna was not going to be in the family picture that would end up on our Christmas card, but was only wearing white as one of my closest friends. Well, Sarah was still mad and demanded to be wearing white even when I explained this to her. My brother then angrily called me and told me that he and Sarah wouldn't be attending unless Sarah was wearing white. And at that point, I laughed it off because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And with that, I just ignored my brother's request because frankly, I was mad at this point. It's my party and I should be able to choose, right? Well, the day of the party, Sarah showed up wearing white and she demanded to be part of the family photos that will end up on the Christmas card. My parents are super traditional and they explained to her that she wouldn't be on the Christmas card until she is engaged to my brother. After this, Sarah threw a hissy fit at the party and then started crying after a conversation with me, making it out like I bullied her in some kind of way. Looking back, I feel like I overreacted over the white and I should have just let her wear it because I honestly don't even care that much, but I do still think it was rude of her to show up in white anyways. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I think everybody sucks here because I think you kind of started this whole thing. Honestly, this is really weird and I just don't know why you set such a weird precedent because Sarah could have easily just worn white and all of this could have been fixed. Because you know what? Sarah's been a part of this family for 3 years in connection to dating your brother. Why wouldn't you just be like, oh yeah, wear white, this will be totally fine. Like it's just like a done deal, you can wipe your hands clean of it and that's it. And sure, the fact that she showed up in white anyways and acted that way was completely out of line. Like if I was Sarah, I would be like, oh, I'm being excluded for stupid reasons. Cool, I'm not showing up, this is not my problem anymore. So yeah, this is really a nasty situation, but I do think you're kind of more of the jerk here, even though I really think that everybody involved in this kind of sucks. A psycho customer chases down my garbage truck, all because I didn't pick up his garbage when I passed by his house. But despite the fact that he didn't even put it on the side of the road, this guy expected me to go down his long driveway, grab his stuff, and then put it in the back of my garbage truck, stating that if I don't do that for him, he is going to call my boss and get me fired. Here's what happened. So I drive a truck for the county recycling program. I started working there about 4 years ago, and this story happened a few months after I started. Now there's 2 important things that go along with this story. When I'm on the route, I drive on the passenger side of the truck in the United States, and I operate the arm of the truck using a joystick. Also, the arm extends about 10 feet, and trust me, this will be important later on. We service every address in the county on a 2-week rotation, and on this particular day, I was in a township that is pretty rural, lots of farmland and forests, and it's not unusual to have to drive a fair distance between bins. On the road this takes place on, I pick up in front of one house, then drive almost half a mile before coming to 3 houses next to each other. At this point, I get to the first house, and I see that the recycling bins are about 75 feet away from the road, and they're behind the trash bins for that house. So I assume they didn't have any recycling to get picked up that day, and I then just go ahead and I drive to the next house. As I'm picking up their bins, I notice a car pulling into into the driveway of the first house, but I don't pay it any mind. Then I drove to the third house, and as I'm about to leave there, I noticed that the vehicle at the first house was backing out of the driveway, and I still don't think twice about any of this. From there, I continue up the road maybe a quarter mile, and I turn onto a narrow side road. On the passenger side of the truck, there's fields and a culvert right by the edge of the road, and on the left side there's a forest. The street is fairly narrow, and with the culvert so close to the edge of the road that I'm on, I'm focusing on staying in the center of my lane. Suddenly, the car from that first house passes me, and when it gets in front of the truck, he slams on the brakes. And even though I stopped about 2 feet away from his car, I knew right then and there that this guy was absolutely going to be trouble. This guy jumps out and runs up to the driver's side door and starts pounding on it. Again, I'm driving on the passenger side of the truck, and also I'm driving standing up. The guy realizes that I'm on the other side and runs around the front of the truck and starts screaming at me. He yells at me and says, "Why didn't you pick up my recycling?" I looked at him and I said, "You mean the bins that were 75 feet away from the road? The arm doesn't reach that far." This jerk then says to me, "Well, you should have gotten out of the truck and gotten them." So I responded by saying, "Sir, we're not allowed on homeowners' property for insurance purposes." He then says to me, "Well, I just got out of the local heart and lung hospital and I can't bring them to the road myself. How else are they going to get picked up?" Now, mind you, this guy is screaming at me the entire time and he is red in the face over recycling that wasn't at the road. So is it any wonder why he was in the hospital that specializes in heart problems? I look at him and I say, "Honestly, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe ask your neighbor to bring them to the road for you." This guy then says to me, "You're going to drive back there and get my bins." But I look at him and I say, "Yeah, that is not going to happen." He then shouts back that, "Yes, you are." But I just said, "Look, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Please just have them by the road and I'll pick them up." This guy then starts screaming, "I'm calling your boss. What's his number and what's your name?" And right there, I was completely fed up with this guy. I look at him and I say, "I'm not telling you a single thing." He then proceeds to take a picture of me, the front of the truck, and a close-up of the license plate, and finally gets back in his car and takes off. Now, even though this is a side road, it's got quite a bit of traffic on it, all due to 2 schools that are just past the end of my route. So this entire time he's been yelling at me, we're blocking 1 lane, and people are trying to get by. I got further up the road to the place where I could pull over safely, and then I called our customer service number to give the woman who answers the phones the heads up that this guy might be calling, and I filled her in on the whole encounter. She called me back that afternoon and said he called and argued with her for 45 minutes about his bins not being emptied, and in the past 3.5 years since that happened, he has put his bins by the street twice. And yes, I definitely kept track of that because this guy was so obnoxious that he truly was very hard to forget. Wow, imagine being so crazy that you chase after the recycling garbage guy and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna make a big scene. I'm gonna force you to stop what you're doing and go back to my house." And it's like, seriously, dude, there's no wonder you're in the hospital for your heart and lungs. Like, this guy got red in the face over this? Like, come on, man, it's not that serious. So good for you for standing up for yourself because this guy was completely out of his mind. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for accusing my father of using me as a backup son for when his legitimate son screwed up and were unable to take over the family business? Because right now I'm still pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm an 18-year-old male and I'm an illegitimate son. My father cheated on his wife with my mom, and his wife allows him to see me 1 hour at the end of each month and on my birthdays. Through him, I have 2 older half-brothers and 1 older half-sister. My father owns a company where he imports machinery from the United States and Europe. My older brothers were supposed to go into the business, but as my father told me on my birthday yesterday, they confessed that they regularly skip English classes and they can't communicate in English well enough, not to mention that the 2 other sons developed drinking problems. He simply just doesn't trust them. I then asked him, "Well, what about my sister?" But he said to me, "Oh, we can't let a woman take over the business," which really sucks since she's the only one of my half-siblings that I like and have anything resembling a familial relationship with. We text and we sometimes call each other. Considering the books that she's recommended to me, her English is as good, if not better than mine. Then he told me I'm his last hope and he wants me to start working soon. And he knows that my English is relatively good, and I've got several stacks of English novels lying around at home. I said to him, "So for my entire life, you were okay with only seeing me 1 hour a month, but now that your legitimate sons have screwed up, you want me to go work for you? Was I just a backup plan?" When I said that, he got angry and said I have no right to judge him when I have never been through what he had to deal with, and that it took all his efforts to save his marriage. That being an adult means that you have to compromise, and I simply can't understand him until I get get married myself. Then he told me he expects to see me at the office soon. So am I in the wrong for being too harsh on him? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Honestly, with what you described, I don't blame you for getting upset. Your dad literally only visited you 1 hour at the end of each month and on your birthdays. Like, that is literally so neglectful, it honestly is so unfair. And then for him to turn around and be like, look, I want you to take over the business. I expect to see you in my office real soon. Like, if I was in that situation, I would be thinking, dude, I have no loyalty to you. The only reason you're acting like my dad suddenly is because this benefits you in some kind of way. And that is so crazy. It's honestly just so unfair. So no, you're not the jerk for being mad at your dad, especially when he reminded you every month why you're not a real son to him. Because if you really were a son to him, he would have seen you way more than just an hour a month. Because in my opinion, there honestly is no good excuse for that. My dad is angry that I can't support him, as his demands are getting more and more absurd, as he literally expects me to fund everything in his life. But at this point, I'm honestly at my breaking point, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I usually don't do these, but I'm realizing after 26 years of my life, my dad feels really entitled to everything. I've never been able to understand why he feels everything has to go his way or else he gets upset. This one recent occurrence I've had is that my mom just passed away, and basically because my parents weren't prepared, my dad is losing a lot of things right now. He can't afford the house, the cars need to be fixed and are in the shop, he's working a lower paying job just to have income, his credit is bad, and then the list goes on and on. Basically, he's in a bad situation. I've been helping every way that I can while my mom was dying and after her passing, buying groceries, taking my dad to appointments, checking in on my dad, visiting to make sure everything's good, and on top of my grief, my job is in a precarious state due to budget issues and having to move soon since my lease is ending. I'm still trying to make sure that he's good because my mom did everything for him. And with that in mind, this brings me to my story. My dad asked me if he can borrow my car. I was hesitant because my dad isn't very communicative, and it's hard to speak with him because sometimes he gets defensive if he's being questioned. I told him he could use my car for 2 days, but after that, I need it for myself, and he needs to figure something out. I even offer that he can get a rental car. He then says, well, maybe I can help him with that too, since he's got bad credit, and he doesn't think that he can rent a car. But immediately, I'm like, wait, why does he keep asking me for more and more? A few weeks ago, I gave him $800 for gas and groceries because his check was short due to health issues and he just couldn't work. And he said he would pay me back when his next check comes in, but that didn't happen. And I didn't expect it to because he needed the money for a reason. So obviously he just doesn't have it. So on top of having him borrow money and use my car, he wants me to also front a rental. Well, at this point I put my foot down and I told him I couldn't help with a rental, to which he said that it's fine and that he'll pay for it. He gives me back my car and then asks if I can take him to the rental place. And while I do say yes, I have a feeling he's gonna ask me to go in with them and somehow ask me to pay again. And guess what? That's exactly what he does. The rental was too much money and he didn't have it in his account and can't use a credit card due to his credit. But I just reiterated that I have my own expenses and I can't help. Well, long story short, we leave without a rental and he starts saying that I never help him. Well, I immediately tell him how much I've helped him with in the last few weeks, and it's been a lot. But then he flips out and says that now, after everything he's done for me, now I can't even help him with this one thing. But I told him, okay, well, how far does this go? The help doesn't stop here. He then starts going in on how he didn't realize he was putting me out and that I need to take him home since I'm not gonna help. He was yelling about how I'm complaining and that he's down bad. I explain I have my own issues going on, and his narrative is not the only narrative that's true. As he puts all the blame on me for why he doesn't have a car, we arrive at his house and he slams my car door and then slams the front door to the house. So basically, he had an entire tantrum, and I honestly couldn't believe it. He really expected me to feel guilty when he acted like that. Anyways, now I'm realizing he felt entitled to my help because I'm his child, and he tried to guilt trip me into helping, knowing that I care about his well-being. And at this point, I feel like my eyes have been opened for the first time. I just thought my dad was easily frustrated, and I didn't realize it was entitlement. So honestly, does anyone have any advice on how to deal with this? He's not gonna bring it up or even apologize. He's gonna act like it didn't happen, and then when I bring it up, he's gonna say it wasn't a big deal. Also, he ended up being able to get a rental by himself anyways after I dropped him off. So he acted like that for nothing. It's honestly so ridiculous, and right now I don't know what to do. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. He's clearly trying to guilt trip you into like paying for everything in his life because his life is clearly not in order. And trust me, I get it. He lost his wife and you lost your mom. So this really would affect just about anybody in a really bad way. And you can only imagine how someone would react to that until it like finally happens. So on that end, I do have a lot of sympathy sympathy for him, and I really hope things get better sooner than later. But the fact that he tried to act like this and be like, wow, this is your fault I don't have these things. Like, that is crazy to me, and there's no good excuse for that. You're not the reason his credit is bad and his job sucks and he doesn't make a lot of money, or that he doesn't have a car. Like, that just doesn't fall on your shoulders at all. So the fact that he's trying to blame that on you is really unfair, and to that end, I don't blame you for being upset and refusing any of his requests. My entitled neighbor loses his mind after I move my mailbox away from his, claiming that I'm only doing it because I don't like his political affiliation, even though that has literally nothing to do with it. Here's what happened. So when we bought the house and moved in 3 years ago, we accepted the location of the mailbox. It's on the other side of our driveway across some uneven ground, maybe about 50 yards away from the door. And sure, this wasn't a problem back then, but since that point, we've had a series of bad luck. My wife needed a new knee, I sprained an ankle, and while it's healed enough to walk on and go back to work, anyone who has had one knows that it can take a while before it's back to 100%. So we decided that the mailbox ought to be moved to the end of our path to the street, and this would be straight ahead on a flat and smooth surface and only about 30 feet away. We asked the post office what we needed to do to move a mailbox, and we were told that all we needed to do was let the driver know that it was being moved, and to then just move it, making sure that it's numbered to match the house so there's no confusion. So we went to the store to buy a new one, since the old one was getting a little ratty from getting hit a couple of times, and we went ahead and installed it this weekend, which to our amusement was the best time to install it, since we actually caught the driver and were able to tell her that here was the new mailbox and that the other one was going away. And so we think to ourselves, great, the situation's handled, the installation goes well, and then we can move on to part 2, the removal of the other mailbox. Well, this is where moving my mailbox turned into some political statement. The old mailbox was on the same post as my neighbor across the street and one house over, so we shared it. During this past election, I posted no sign supporting either of the candidates. My neighbor, who we will call John, had a half dozen signs, flags, and a banner in his yard in support of a certain candidate. Well, John came over as I was removing the old box and complained that the only reason I was doing this was that I didn't support said candidate, and this was my petty reason, and that I just didn't want to be associated with him. But you know what? In truth, I didn't want to be associated with him. And this is largely because before we knew he was a supporter, he wasn't a very pleasant person. Whenever I would walk my dog, he would yell at me to keep my mud off of his yard, even though I was on my side of the street. He would also call animal control on me about my chickens running loose across his yard, when in reality it was his neighbor to his right that had the chickens. I don't have any, although I did buy a used chicken coop, since it's also a really nice unit for my wife to keep her rabbits in. So in all reality, I could see the confusion. We used to wave at him like we would with any other neighbor we would see outside. But you know what? He would never wave back, typically just ignoring us and making a point to look at anything else other than us. That is, unless we had the dog with us, because then he would watch us like a hawk to make sure we didn't come near his lawn. Honestly, we disliked him long before we knew he was a supporter of this certain candidate. I explained my medical condition, the walk through uneven ground that I stated above, but that wasn't enough for him. He then threatened to call the homeowners association. But here's the thing, we don't have a homeowners association. We have a neighborhood association that only concerns itself with collecting donations for snow removal and mosquito spraying. Well, after that interaction, I just finished removing the mailbox and I went back inside and I vowed to ignore him from here on out. Because trust me, that guy is not a nice neighbor. Wow, that guy's a piece of garbage. First of all, I don't care who you're voting for. If you're gonna be putting up flags and banners like crazy, and I mean in a way that's like super annoying and super obnoxious, then guess what? I'm probably not gonna want to be friends with you. And this could be about any political party or any political candidate you could think of. If you're that fanatical about them, then guess what? We will probably not get along. But I just love the fact that he's like, wow, you're leaving because you just don't want to be associated with me, which kind of leads me to believe that other people have done that to him, meaning that he's connecting the dots that, yeah, you also don't like him for obvious reasons. So honestly, good for you for moving your mailbox away from that guy, because John in this story sounds incredibly obnoxious. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pursue my dream job, all because my wife sacrificed hers? Because right now I seriously feel guilty, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male and I've always dreamed of being an artist. As a kid, I would spend hours sketching characters, landscapes, and whatever came to mind. It was the only thing that made me feel alive when life got too hard. Growing up, my family was financially unstable, meaning that art supplies weren't always accessible. My parents were supportive in theory, but they were also realists. They often said things like, well, art is a nice hobby, but you'll need to get a real job. Fast forward to college and I majored in graphic design because because it felt like a safe way to pursue art while staying employed. And around this time, I met my now wife, who we will call Emily. Emily was studying biology and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. She's always been one of the most hardworking and selfless people that I know, and we clicked immediately and became inseparable. After graduation, Emily's path to become a vet hit a major roadblock. Her father had a stroke, and her family couldn't afford the cost of both his care and her graduate school. So without hesitation, Emily dropped her plans and started working full-time to help her parents. I offered to contribute, but she refused, saying that I've got my dreams and I should focus on them too. She encouraged me to chase my art career, even when I felt guilty watching her put her dreams on hold. With her support, I managed to land a decent graphic design job at a marketing firm. It wasn't exactly what I envisioned, but it paid the bills. Over the years though, my passion for art started to fade. Deadlines, uninspiring projects, and corporate constraints made me feel like I was just another cog in the machine. About a year ago, Emily suggested I take some time off so that I could rediscover my love for art. She said, "You've always supported me. Please let me return the favor." At first, I was hesitant, but her insistence won me over. So I quit my job and started working on personal art projects. And for the first time in years, I felt like myself again. But here's where things get complicated. A few months ago, I was offered an incredible opportunity to work for a game studio, something I've dreamed of since I was a kid. It's a high-paying, prestigious position, and everyone says I would be crazy to turn it down. But the problem is that it's in a city across the country, and Emily can't come with me. Emily recently started a small pet care business in our town, finally finding a way to reconnect with her passion. She's built a loyal client base, and she is genuinely happy. So moving isn't an option for her right now, and she doesn't want to do long distance. She has told me repeatedly that she would support me if I took the job, but I can see the sadness in her eyes when we talk about it. Now, here's the part that makes me feel like a jerk. I've decided not to take the job. I haven't told Emily yet, but I've made up my mind. I know she would encourage me to go, but I can't bring myself to leave her. She has sacrificed so much for me and her family. How on earth can I repay her by abandoning her right now? At the same time, I wonder if I'm being unfair to myself. Am I giving up on my dream for no reason? What if I start to resent her later, even though she never asked me to stay? I don't want to feel like I've wasted my potential, but I also don't want to hurt the person who means the most to me. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Oh man, this really is a tough situation. But I think in my opinion, regardless of what you're doing, I think you should really be talking to Emily to figure out what you guys want to do. Because seriously, this is a group decision, and you never know what Emily could say. She could very well say, look, just go for 6 months and see if this works. And if it does, then I can shut down business here and move out there and start another business out there. Like, this very well could work out in a way that you might not be expecting, and I seriously don't think you would know unless you ask her first. So no, I don't think you're necessarily the jerk for saying, okay, I want to not take this job and support Emily, but also I really believe there might be a middle ground here where you can still pursue this job and still get to do something that you probably will never get the chance to do ever again. Especially when you consider the game industry right now, it does seem a little bit unstable, and this could be one of those things where it's like you either take it or you're just not going to get it again. But either way, hopefully Emily's in on whatever decision you guys make, because I really think this is something that both of you need to agree on. My psycho ex refuses to move out of my house, claiming that she would make a false police report against me if I ever did try to make her leave, as she planned on squatting in my house indefinitely. So I decided to get some revenge by moving all of her stuff out of my house into a storage unit, all while she was on vacation with one of her girlfriends. And I'm honestly so satisfied by the way this worked out, because this caused her so many problems in the long run. Here's what happened. Okay, so I had broken up with my ex about a year prior to this event, but she wouldn't move out. One excuse after another for a solid year, until one day, amidst yet another argument, she finally admitted that her plan was to stay indefinitely, and said that she was going to claim I was domestically mistreating her if I did anything about it. That weekend, she decided to go out for one of her weekend vacations with a girlfriend, so I took advantage of the 48 hours I had, and I got to work reserving a storage unit and rented a moving truck. I worked around the clock loading that truck multiple times, only sleeping a few hours that entire weekend. She had hoarding tendencies that I had long turned a blind eye to, since, you know, I had to pick my battles, and it had gotten pretty far out of control. Not only did I make dozens of trips, but the storage unit itself was almost too small for it all. It was truly amazing how much crap she managed to pack floor to ceiling in multiple rooms, closets, and the garage, despite living in the same house together for so long. So I made sure her laptop was the very first thing in the storage unit, all the way in the back corner, followed by all of her clothing, and yes, she had a lot, then furniture, then all the meaningless hoarded junk. By the time I was done, that storage unit was packed floor to ceiling, to the point that I had to really Tetris the last couple of loads in there just to get the door shut. She was right at the end of a semester of school and not only needed the laptop first thing the next week, but she was also planning on leaving for a cross-state road trip to visit family, and everything she needed for that was at the very back. Now, from what I heard, it took her and another friend the better part of the week to find that laptop and repack the storage unit itself. She even missed some important deadlines at school and delayed her family trip by a whole week, which, by the way, messed up other plans and wasted a few PTO days at work to boot. But the best part came months later. You see, when she first came back from that little weekend vacation, I had asked her to sign a receipt to receive the key to the storage unit. Well, she immediately refused, threw a fit, tried to steal my dog even though she failed to do so, tried to break into my house while I was gone, but then came back with 6 cops in her wake. Now, even to this day, I don't know what lies she told them to get that entourage, but after I explained my side of the story, they realized it was a civil matter and very quickly left. The receipt I asked her to sign was simple enough in that I offered to pay for the storage unit for 6 months if she just signed it on that day, but since she didn't, I removed my card from the account and put the unit in her name. Well, the only problem was, the card she then put on file with them was an authorized user card linked to my account, which I promptly canceled. So then she missed enough payments on the storage unit that they locked her out and she was never able to get the rest of her stuff before they presumably auctioned all of it off. Okay, first of all, your ex is completely insane. You mean to tell me that she's like, oh, I'm never leaving, and if you try to make me leave, I'm gonna get you arrested. And when I say she was gonna try and claim like domestic mistreatment, I really hope you understand what I'm inferring there, because it is seriously messed up that she would say that. So I think the way the original poster handled this is probably the only way this could have gotten done. Like seriously, what kind of psychopath would treat people that way? She was willing to make up a lie just to get you in trouble. Also, she wouldn't move out even though you guys broke up. But you know what? I love the way you did it because you really did cause some problems for her. She had to rearrange that entire storage unit. All of the crap that she actually needed was in the back of the storage unit. Like, that is hilarious to me, and I honestly don't blame you for doing this. So yeah, hopefully you don't have to deal with your ex anymore because that lady sounds like a complete psychopath. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled teacher thought that she knew my name better than I did, refusing to listen to me when I said what my name actually was, and instead assuming that I was making it up and trying to call myself something else. So I got revenge by making her look really dumb by bringing in my birth certificate just to prove her wrong. And I've truly never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. So this was years ago when I was in secondary school and around 15 years old. We used to have form in the morning where the teacher would take the register and let you know about anything going on in the school before you went to your other classes. And my form tutor was a miserable old woman that was a renowned jerk. There are several stories I could tell about her, but this one is the only time I got the better of her. My parents named me a shortened version of a posh-sounding name, and for the sake of the story, let's say they called me Alex, which is short for Alexander, even though that's not my real name. Whenever this woman would call my name, she would always use Alexander instead of Alex. Now, I brought up to her that it was not my name multiple times, and I asked her to please call me Alex as that's what my parents called me. Well, when I said this, she would always get angry. She would always say, "Don't be stupid. No one is named Alex. Your name is Alexander. Alex is just what you want to be called." And no matter how much I insisted, she refused. At one point, she gave me a detention for asking her to call me by my correct name. Well, the school called to let my parents know that I had been given detention for arguing with my teacher. When I told my parents I was supposed to have detention for asking my teacher to call me the right name, they were definitely not happy. So they gave me a trump card to use against her. They gave me my birth certificate. The next day when she called my name, I once again told her that wasn't my name. And when she said that I was going to get another detention, I pulled out my birth certificate, I put it down on her desk, and I said to her, "My birth certificate says my name is Alex, so that's what you will call me. Thank you." Well, when I did that, the look on her face was priceless. And it was from then on that she started calling me my actual name for the rest of my time I was in her class. And it truly felt great to get back at this stupid teacher because she seriously was the absolute worst. Okay, I really like this story because I cannot stand teachers who acted like this when I was in school. You all know the type of teacher from like high school or middle school or even like college that acted so unbelievably obnoxious. They thought they knew everything and they literally talked down to you at any chance they got. And this is just another prime example where they thought, "Oh yeah, I know better than you. You don't know anything. You're just a dumb kid." So the fact that your parents basically said, "Okay, here's your birth certificate. it. Go prove her wrong, cause violence, do crime. Like, that in my opinion is great, and seriously, I love the fact that you put her in her place, because her attitude in my opinion was completely uncalled for, as you definitely did not deserve that first attention. I gave my ex-boyfriend a surprise he will never forget after I moved out a week early, not only taking all of my belongings, but making sure that anything I bought in that house, regardless of how mundane or small it might be, I took it with me just in spite of this massive jerk. And I honestly feel so good getting back at my toxic ex. Here's what happened. Okay, so my ex and I were planning on separating as it was a very toxic relationship. He was a controlling narcissist, and I had been under his thumb for far too long. I was in counseling, and my therapist and I mapped out the best way for me to get out, although the details of the plan were my idea. I got a better paying job, and I opened my own bank account, and that was a huge fight in and of itself, and I figured out where to go. He knew I was leaving, and he even went through the house and marked all the things that were his that I couldn't take with me, which was basically everything that we purchased throughout the 13 years together. And also, I was only allowed to take the items that I came with when we moved in together. He planned to take the day off from work on a particular Saturday and would be there to supervise my move to ensure that I only took what he approved of. And that's where my plan began. The Saturday before his planned date, I scheduled a move after he left work. He worked long days, so I knew I could pack and leave before he returned. About an hour after he left, my friends and family showed up with boxes and tape and a moving truck. And I even parked it out back so my neighbors didn't see any of it. In less than 4 hours, all of my belongings were packed and on the truck, and I pretty much stuck to his rules because I didn't want reminders of our life and my future. Before I left in the truck, I went through and I grabbed every single towel, washcloth, every sheet and toilet paper and paper towel, as well as every napkin and tissue I could possibly find. I mean, I took anything and everything that he could wipe his butt with or his nose with. And I took the carpet runner that was at the front door, leaving the tape that secured it to the floor. That way he knew as soon as he walked in that I definitely was gone. So imagine just coming home from work after a long day, expecting one thing and finding another, and then not having a single tissue or toilet paper to use. My best revenge was building a happy new life, but that day made me feel oh so good. Oh man, this is such a good story because I love the fact that you got back at this guy. You totally flipped the script on his head in a way that he probably will never forget. Like, you pulled a fast one, and I love the fact that you did that because this guy was clearly trying to scam you. So truly good for you for getting back at your ex-boyfriend, because this guy sounds like an absolute nightmare. And the fact that he wanted to like supervise you moving out, in my opinion, shows how toxic he truly is. An entitled neighbor demands that my friend's son give up half of his money to her daughter, claiming that this would help him prepare for the real world and that this would be the right thing to do. And we're all quite literally blown away by this request. Here's what happened. One of my best friends is a married father of 3. For the sake of the story, we'll call him John. Though highly intelligent and with a university degree, John decided to follow his more artistic side when choosing a career path, and accordingly, he doesn't make as much money as he probably could. While his family isn't struggling in any way, they do have to be a bit more careful with their finances. Accordingly, their children don't receive any sort of allowance. If the kids need or want something, they have to ask. John then decides, together with a wife, whether they will get it. Now, the oldest one of the kids, who's a 16-year-old male, we'll call him Ryan for the sake of the story, recently voiced his desire to go out with his friends every now and then. Now, John thought that this was understandable, but funding such escapades on a regular basis would be quite the burden on the family finances. Now, I heard about this little conundrum by chance and suggested that Ryan could get a part-time job. After 2 weeks, I received a very nice thank you letter, as Ryan had secured part-time employment with a rather popular food chain. So Ryan now makes his own money, which he can spend however he wants. And John made it clear that Ryan's grades aren't allowed to slip. And at this point, everybody was happy. But unfortunately, this state of affairs didn't last too long. The apartment building in which John's family lives has a bit of a communal vibe, with people pitching in to take care of each other's needs. It's not a bad situation. Neighbors do laundry for each other or watch smaller kids, so everyone can adjust to their individual work schedules. It is pretty neat. Due to this situation, it didn't take long for one of the female residents, we'll call her Rita, to notice that Ryan suddenly had more cash to spare. Shortly afterwards, she also found out about Ryan's work after school and weekend activities. And it was here that Rita came to see John, talking about how her own daughter, who is the same age as Ryan, could also use some spending money. Now, John initially assumed that she wanted to know how Ryan got the job and some advice on how to apply, but unfortunately, he was dead wrong. Rita wanted, and I'm not kidding, for John to instruct Ryan to split his earnings with her daughter 50-50. Her reasoning was simple, straightforward, and absolutely crazy. She said that girls shouldn't have to do something as mundane as cleaning in a fast food joint, and that simply handing over the money to her daughter would be good for Ryan, as he would learn to share and take care of others around him. And she tried to phrase this as some kind of like preparing for the real world kind of thing. Well, when John realized that Rita was serious, he told her straight up that this wasn't going to happen. She could either fund her daughter directly or let her get part-time work with Ryan. And John also pointed out that fast food isn't the only game in town. Well, believe it or not, Rita took great offense at this and lectured John in his own living room, saying how he would regret this once Ryan turns out to be a greedy and selfish adult with no social skills. John then took this as his cue to ask Rita politely yet firmly to leave his home. Ever since then, Rita has apparently engaged in a series of passive-aggressive behavior patterns, but nothing that John or Ryan can't handle. And as of right now, this is where things are, with John informing me that he and Ryan decided to simply ignore her for the time being. Because honestly, this entire situation is honestly insane. Wow, you have to be a special version of stupid to actually make this kind of request. Like seriously, what were they thinking? Did they really think that this person would be like, oh yeah, Ryan can give half his money to you? That's totally fine. In fact, I encourage it. Like what kind of freeloader crap is that? Are you kidding me right now? If Rita's daughter wants to make money, guess what? You're not gonna get it out of Ryan. And the fact that she tried to be like, oh yeah, this will help you prepare for the real world. It's like, no it won't. What are you talking about? This doesn't prepare anybody for anything, because all this does is prove that Rita and her daughter are potential like moochers, and they would happily take money out of someone else's pocket for literally nothing. So yeah, that lady was completely out of her mind for asking that, and I'm honestly still blown away that they asked that in the first place. Am I the jerk for slamming the door on my neighbor's face after he got aggressive and angry at us, claiming that we had broken the elevator? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, this doesn't take place in the United States, but rather I'm from a European country. I'm a 19-year-old female and I'm a student living in a city 2 hours away from my hometown in a shared apartment with 3 other roommates. Let's call them Naomi, Lisa, and Emily, all of them 19 years old. We all get along well and we are very close, so we live perfectly fine together and we don't cause any trouble. We also live in the 5th floor. The building's elevator is one of those old ones that you have to manually open the door, get inside, close the door, and when you press the floor button that you're going to, the interior door closes and goes to that floor. As a safety measure, the elevator won't move until the manual door is completely closed. But the problem is that it's so old that sometimes it doesn't fully close. So when someone gets off on one floor, they sometimes leave it half closed on accident, and the elevator gets stuck in that floor until someone fully shuts the door. And this is where the real issue comes into play. This happened 2 days ago. Naomi and I were having lunch in the kitchen before going to class, with Lisa in her room probably gaming, and Emily had left early for university in the morning. Well, suddenly someone knocks at the door. When we both go to check, we find an elderly man standing there, and right then and there, he automatically starts scolding us for leaving the elevator door open. And yes, it was half open. He yelled that he has some kind of heart problem or something like that, and that we were very inconsiderate. Mind you, we haven't seen this man in our entire lives, so we were kind of shocked and pretty uncomfortable. We tried telling him that maybe it was the neighbors living in front of us that left it open, but he denied it, saying he knocked at their door but they didn't answer. So they're probably not home, and so it absolutely is our fault. Now, as a bit of clarification, I was the only one to leave the apartment that morning, but when I returned, the elevator was stuck on the 7th floor, so I had to take the stairs home, meaning that it couldn't have been us. The argument was already tense, but then Naomi accidentally let out a nervous giggle, and this man absolutely flipped out. He called her the B word, started screaming obscenities, hitting the elevator door, calling us every cuss word under the sun, and looked like he was about to lay hands on us. At this point, Naomi was getting very scared, and I wasn't just gonna put up with his bullcrap, so I said to him, you know what? No. I pulled Naomi inside, I slammed the door in his face, leaving him screaming for a couple of minutes until he finally left. And you know what? I was pretty pissed off for a while, but we then told Lisa about it and she sided with us. And now, looking back, it did kind of feel bad, but everyone says that I was right. So seriously, did I do anything wrong? Because at this point, I'm not really sure what to think. No, you did not do anything wrong. This guy was acting crazy. The second anybody starts like slamming their hand against the elevator, as well as swearing at me and acting like a psychopath, that's the biggest red flag that I would ever need to be like, okay, I need to get out of this situation one way or another. There's no reasoning with someone like that, and honestly, I think you did the right thing by slamming the door in his face. Because for starters, you guys didn't do anything wrong. You're literally just living your life in your apartment, and then in comes this old jerk who's trying to be like, wow, you did this, I can't believe you. Like, that is so annoying, it's not even funny. So no, you did the right thing, and I think you really did protect you and your roommate, because this guy was clearly unhinged, and who knows what he could have done in a fit of rage. An entitled Karen constantly makes fun of my weight, as well as judges the groceries that I purchase. And now, after dealing with this nearly a dozen times, I'm honestly not sure how to handle this, and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so there's this woman living in my apartment building that has decided to snark at me every time I see her. I don't know if she treats others this way because all of our interactions are from our parking garage spots to the elevators. Anytime I have a bag of groceries or takeout and she and I are walking to the elevator, she says to me, "It must be nice to be able to afford that." And she says this in the snottiest, almost snarl voice you can think of. The first time this happened, I looked at her and I said, "You can't buy a loaf of bread?" She responded by saying, "Of course I can. I'm just concerned for your health, that's all." I then said, "Well, maybe start with that concern then, rather than getting snarky about my finances." Now, for a bit of background, I've been fat ever since I was in the 3rd grade. I overheard my doctor tell my mom that she should put me on a diet, and my mom said, "It's his own fault, and I'm not going to do anything special for him." My mom was also very controlling and always about the shame and blame. I went from being a slim child in kindergarten to 103 pounds when I started the 3rd grade. I weighed 225 pounds in 10th grade, 250 at the end of high school, and 370 pounds when I was 44. Therapy and weight loss programs came next, and now I'm at 265 at the age of 56, and I'm still getting it down slowly. This woman's accosting me in this post context sounds like my mother, both in the shaming snark and then faking care. And that really doesn't help my appraisal of the Karen. This unwanted interaction has occurred 8 times in the last year. The only occurrences not being a harpy were when her partner was with her in the parking garage. Then she said nothing at all and was almost meek, except for her side-eyeing me while her partner was leading to the elevator. And I'm glad I'm only 2 floors up from the garage. I still have no idea what makes her do this. Although when I respond, she just stops and stares ahead as if I wasn't there. My comments where snark about her opinion mean nothing, or the quiet whisper when I told her I had been unemployed and had no money for several years. I was once very poor, so I enjoy being able to buy what I want now. The rest were just my head turning to look at her and then ignoring her. Weirdly, she always said goodbye to me in a pleasant voice, and I replied in kind. But regardless, this lady's obnoxious and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this parking garage Karen is absolutely out of line. It's really unfair that she's acting this way because it literally could not be more obvious that she's judging you. She's only pretending to care, but in reality, she's being a massive jerk. So in my opinion, and this is what I would do, I would absolutely call her on her garbage the next time she says anything like this. Like flat out tell her, okay, this is unacceptable and you're not going to talk to me like that. Because seriously, the way she's talking is so wrong. She has no right to judge you this way, and in my opinion, I don't think that you should ever have to take that. My entitled friend decides to sell off a laptop that I literally had just got done fixing just for him. So I decided to change his avatar and desktop background into something that is incredibly embarrassing, thus humiliating him as soon as he brought the laptop into a pawn shop. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend is computer illiterate. Now you might be wondering how bad this might be. Well, he complains when I ask him to email me a link to something because he doesn't know that you can copy and paste a URL, and instead he types each character of the URL out in the email. Anyways, he bought a rather nice laptop from a pawn shop that he used to work at. He had told me once that if someone wants to pawn a computer, they have to turn it on, log into it with a username to prove that it's theirs. And whenever he's short on cash, off he goes to the pawn shop. And he had been at this particular one so often that he got a job there. On all his past computers, he had gotten viruses and hijackers from going to adult websites. So he asked me if I could wipe the hard drive, which his pawn shop never did when buying computers, and install a firewall, antivirus, keylogger detector, anti-malware, and other useful programs that he liked. Well, I made that laptop bulletproof. I added anti-adware, LibreOffice, photo editing programs, video editing software, etc. And it took some time getting it just right. I even imaged the drive, cleaned it, and ran some benchmark tests. The day I was to return it to him, he mentioned that he was hard up for some money. And knowing him as I did, he was most likely going to pawn that laptop that I spent a lot of time getting ready for him. So the day I returned it, I added a login avatar and desktop background just to embarrass him. I went to his house with it and he suggested that we go out for a cheap lunch. He drove and also suddenly put the laptop in the seat behind him without even turning it on. And not surprisingly, our first stop was the pawn shop. He asked me to wait while he went inside with the laptop, and I could see the intake counter from the car. So he placed the laptop on the counter and the worker asked him to turn it on and log in. Well, the look on his face was well worth the effort. And let's just say the avatar was incredibly inappropriate and the desktop wallpaper was just as inappropriate. He looked out of the car and shot me the most evil look, but I just laughed my butt off and gave him a thumbs up. His former coworkers were standing there smirking and he looked quite embarrassed. And after that, I was never asked to work on his computers ever again. Oh wow, this really is funny to me because this guy absolutely deserved this. You mean to tell me that after you put all this time and energy into like fixing up this laptop, this guy's gonna turn around and be like, okay, I'm hard up for money, time to sell it off. Like, what are you doing, man? That's so unfair. If I was the person who worked on that laptop, I would be super pissed off. I don't think I would do anything like this per se, but I would definitely be very upset and probably never help them again. But either way, I find the situation incredibly hilarious. My toxic manager is constantly picking on me specifically, as he micromanages me in a way that honestly is so debilitating and so demoralizing. But after finally realizing that he's only doing this to me, I'm honestly at my breaking point because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a host, and the previous place that I worked did not have takeout, or the host didn't do takeout. It was high volume, so all I did was seating, reservations, and phone calls. My current place basically has the servers rotate whoever does takeout, and it's basically one of those things where if you see it while in the ticket and your section isn't full, then go ahead and take care of it. If a customer walks in for their order and it's still not packed, the host tells the server and they finish up that ticket. Other than weekend nights, we are hardly slammed and we have enough servers, so it still works out. Well, suddenly the manager sends me a long message saying that he wants me to step up on takeout. I always take all the phone calls and I put in the order, but he wants me to pack everything. And he even told the servers not to touch packing takeout. But now suddenly there's 5 tickets unpacked and left alone while I scramble to figure it out. The servers are told to seat people and answer the phone for me as I'm stuck in the back packing takeout. It's like, what is going on right now? The other manager screams at me that I'm doing it wrong, even if I'm doing it right. He says things are missing when they're not. He says hot and cold items should be separated, but then says hot should be on top, but cold should be on the bottom, while also complaining about some items being double bagged and saying, oh, this one should and this one shouldn't. And it's like, what are you doing? He's even waved a bag in front of my face in front of the other manager and staff, and this is because it was a 20 ounce and not a 16 ounce. He would micromanage that I put 2 sauce packets in and not 3, or only 2 utensils and not 4. All dishes should be upright and all takeout with a menu. Now, despite this, I've packed it exactly as he says, like it's a science. But opening up takeout I've packed and stapled to examine for mistakes is absolutely crazy. When I started taking out bags and putting utensils in them, making them ready for orders and to pack, he puts them away and only wants me to start opening a bag when the kitchen finishes everything in that specific order. And it's just so crazy to me. And it would be one thing if it was actually a complex system, but we only have 3 types of bags, 3 types of containers, and 3 types of boxes. So packing our cuisine is essentially a pizza place level easy in terms of packing. Since then, I've actually passed over takeout for months before I know for a fact this special training was only happening to me, and the 2 new servers never got any of it. But every server has forgotten sauces, gotten orders wrong, and made sauce packets rain into these bags. Even the manager himself forgets a drink or a straw. And guess what? They just laugh about these mistakes, and so does he. I'm the only one that got this special training. Last weekend, he told some of the servers to help with a bunch of orders, and some of them forgot sauces, mixed up drinks, and most forgot menus and packed dishes with the bag not upright. And yet, despite all of this, no one was yelled at. The manager even laughed with a server about a drink mix-up. And it's like, what are you talking about? What bothers me most is I don't even touch any of my takeout tips, so I have to deal with all of this while they keep my tips. I also know for a fact that other people in my job before me would just text all day at the stand. One time, he was pissed off that I made a sale by charging people $2 for 2 styrofoam cups of water, saying that you don't need to charge for water. And it's like, okay, so you're anal about counting napkins, but not excited about a sale? And sure, I know it doesn't matter, but still, I'm like, why? Why me? After the bag waving, I ended up tearing up to the chef, who definitely let the managers know, and my hours got cut from 5 days to 2 days. And I don't even want to go to my shifts tomorrow. I don't even know if it's worth talking to the manager that's actually nice to me. And the funny part is that I've had no mix-up or complaints on my takeout orders the past 2 weeks. But honestly, it all just doesn't matter because I don't think I'll ever get respected by these people. So seriously, is it worth talking to the manager that's actually nice to me to see if there's something that can be done? Because right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that you're sticking with it and still working there. Seriously, these people suck. They're obviously calling you out on purpose, and for some reason, they're very clearly treating you differently. And no, this is not your fault. Nothing, and I mean nothing that you're doing right now would ever justify this kind of treatment. Like, this guy is so crazy about you figuring out your takeout orders, and yet even still, the servers can mess up and they don't get anything. And my God, trust me when I say this, I've been there. I've been with awful managers who treat me like garbage and yet seem to laugh and joke with everybody else. And you're just kind of left sitting there like, wait, what did I do? I didn't do anything. Because from the sounds of it, you're a good worker. You're trying to find the most optimal way to get things done, and this guy's literally just crapping on you. you. So sure, you could talk to your manager, but in my opinion, I think you absolutely should find another job, because this place doesn't sound like it's gonna get better anytime soon. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Nobody in my life seems to like my boyfriend, and now I'm second guessing our entire relationship because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for just a little bit over a year. We met at my workplace and moved in together last July. Because of a financial situation, I had to move in with him even though I didn't quite feel ready. Now, things were good when we first met. I mean, the guy is a little strange, but I knew that from the start and I appreciated it. We had the same sense of humor and got along, and that's all that really mattered to me. I like having someone who's different than me to converse with. Now, to preface this, when my boyfriend is around me, he's either very shut in playing games or excited to show me little Instagram memes and affection. However, when he began to meet my friends and family, he wouldn't put in any effort. He would sit in the corner awkwardly silent, and it would pique everybody's interest. They either thought that we were fighting or that he was upset. My friends, family, and I played it off at first, and we thought, hey, maybe he's just super introverted. I never believed in love at first sight. So even though we started in a good place, and I wasn't sure if I want to marry him, I thought that we would learn, grow together, and get better. Well, instead, our relationship has gone very downhill. Our differences have started to become unbearable to me. He is constantly quiet and reserved, and it comes off like he's pissed off 24/7. Although he always denies being upset, it's so hard to relate and talk to him when I'm very extroverted and he's being extremely quiet and introverted. Lately, I've had multiple of my friends express that they think he doesn't like them, and this is all because of the way he acts. And apparently, it seems that they don't want to be around him either. My family has asked me multiple times, "Are you sure about this one?" Which is disheartening to me because I value their opinions a lot. Yesterday was my birthday dinner, and my best friend brought a guy that she is talking to. Well, today she confided in me that her guy was worried that my boyfriend was racist simply because of the way he was acting and not trying to converse. The guy said he tried hard to talk to my boyfriend, but he just literally wouldn't engage. Now, this really upset me because my boyfriend is definitely not like that, but always has this awful attitude. Everyone around my life that cares for me is expressing that they aren't sure about him for me because we are so different. And usually I would not care, but it's starting to change my attitude towards him. I'm so scared to tell him that I don't have feelings anymore and want to separate because having differences doesn't feel like a valid reason to break up. Well, last month I tried to tell him that I want to live separately when our lease ends because living alone is something I value, and I was practically forced to move in with him due to finances. Well, when I said that, he cried and said he wouldn't have anywhere to go if I moved out, so I just settled it by having different bedrooms in the same house when we move out. Now, I know where this story ends and the obvious solution is to break up, but I don't know how to navigate it and I don't want to hurt him. I know I have to, but I have a huge problem with tense situations like these. I'm so avoidant to hurt him that I contemplated moving back home as an excuse to break up with him, but I realized that would just ruin everything that I have going for me right now. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, it doesn't sound like this guy's putting any effort into your relationship. Sure, he's excited to be around you, but around family, I mean, my God, this guy's not even trying. And also, I think you need to realize that no matter how you go about this situation, you will hurt him, whether you break up with him softly or just by ripping the band-aid off. Like, this guy's probably gonna cry and be really upset, but at the end of the day, you said it. You said, hey, I might not want to be with this guy anymore, and in my opinion, if you really feel that way, then that's a big red flag that this probably is not right for you. So yeah, the situation sucks, but I think you do need to do what's best for you, because from the sounds of it, this does not sound ideal, and I don't blame you for having second thoughts. My grandmother is constantly trying to control my life, and with my birthday trip coming up around the corner, I'm worried that she might try to do it again, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I need some help on how to handle my grandmother, who I suspect is trying to control my life, because I'm honestly getting so fed up with her behavior, and so is my family. Me, my parents, and one of my brothers have a hearing impairment and severe disabilities, but even still, we are very independent. I left the nest when I was just 19 years old, and I live alone in my own flat. And in these 6 years, my confidence and independence increased with the help of support workers. And I even started recently traveling to different places around the United Kingdom. My grandma had been part of my life since I was born, and I always thought of her as a mother figure, so my childhood always seemed normal. But when I was 17 years old, I was forced to stay with her for a while. Everything seemed fine at the beginning, but then I noticed some red flags while I was staying there. For example, she tells me to change into something else just because she didn't like it, or to wait at the bus station to pick me up, even though I didn't ask her to, and even calls me when I'm running late home. Well, I couldn't take it anymore, and I ran away and went back to my parents after I was found. The whole thing traumatized me so much. I suffered from severe anxiety, had some really dark thoughts, and refused to see her or contact her for a year. Recently, she started controlling and withholding info from the family too. For example, when Dad told her about an extension planned for the family house after the paperwork was completed and signed, she had the audacity to phone the council for further information, but she was denied this due to confidentiality reasons, and instead she got scolded. Another example is the pregnancy of my step-cousin, and she didn't tell us about it until after the baby was born. Also, she didn't tell my dad about my great-uncle's death until after the funeral. And on top of that, my aunt's marriage is something she didn't tell my dad about until just a week before the wedding. She also doesn't like my mom and would often leave her out of cards and presents, which she finds very upsetting. She treats her other 3 children and my cousins differently from us and allows them to live their own lives. However, she hasn't seen one of them for 3 years and is still moaning about it, even though he does see his granddad a lot. As for me, she once criticized me about the condition of my flat, tried to steer me away from my granddad's funeral on my mom's side because I had an exam on that day, and showed concerns about my well-being at university, despite being happy about it when I first told her about it. I am planning a trip to Scotland, and I will be staying there for 3 weeks. Because of her nature and her pride high enough to not apologize even once, as well as just make excuses and criticize us, I originally planned to not tell her, but she seemed to have a tradition where she FaceTimes me to sing happy birthday every year, and I find it really annoying now, and I've told her many times to stop. And because the trip is on my birthday, she will eventually know about this. I don't want her to make me upset or try to ruin my plans in any way, so I want to find a way to say to her that she can't control my life, and if she can't accept that I'm an adult now, then I can't trust her with my life anymore. I now call her or see her less frequently because I'm getting really fed up now, and so does my dad. I already have mental health issues, and this would just make me more upset. So right now I'm super frustrated and I really just don't want to deal with her any longer. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. This does sound super obnoxious because what you're describing really does sound super controlling. But I think the strategy that you're going with, where you're like kind of slowly fading out of like any kind of communication, especially on a more detailed manner, like that in my opinion might be the best change that you need. Sometimes an information diet really will go a long way in showing people that, hey, I don't like you nearly as much as you think I do. So hopefully this all works out, and hopefully your birthday isn't ruined by your grandma, because considering the way she's treated you in the past, I think that you deserve to celebrate that day without her being present to try and take away from it. Am I the jerk for trying to have a conversation with my friend about whether or not they found a ride for us to go to and from the airport? Because right now I'm being called disrespectful, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so about 3 weeks ago, we booked a vacation, and my friend said that their mother will take us to and from the airport, so we shouldn't bother paying to park the car at the airport, as they also didn't want to spend the money doing that. Because of this, I told other people in our party to make their own travel arrangements, and they have done so without any kind of issue. A week passes by, and I asked my friend if this is all sorted out for sure, with our way to and from the airport being figured out. Well, they then came back to me saying that they hadn't even asked yet, but that they will do that soon. Because of this, I made arrangements for a family member to take us to the airport, and I left my friend to figure out a way back. Now, because we're tight on time, I've said that my friend needs to meet me at my house and that we'll travel from there. And this is fine, but now I'm being told that the ride they've planned back from the airport stops once we arrive at their house. I didn't drive, and now 6 days out from the vacation, I'm having to find more travel arrangements back from their home. And I've said that this is silly and unfair, as they originally said rides were sorted and didn't want to pay for parking. But apparently, because I've asked if we could head to the airport from my house, it's disrespectful of me to assume that I'd have a ride home. And I've paid for the ride to the airport as my family member asked for fuel. Their ride back doesn't want fuel, but now I'll likely have to pay anyone else to give me a ride home. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? I don't feel like I am, but perhaps maybe I'm looking at this weirdly. I mean, they did say that we'd have rides sorted out, but we never had any. So it's honestly been such a mess ever since then. What should I do? Oh my gosh, I hate situations like this because seriously, you're not asking a lot from this friend. Like, the least they can do is at least follow through with what they were saying they were going to do. So if they're the one that initiated and said, oh, don't worry guys, I'll take care of the ride situation, and then slowly but surely that turns out to be a complete lie, then my God, don't ever use them for anything ever again. They're clearly not reliable, and they absolutely will leave you high and dry. So no, you're not the jerk, and you definitely were not being disrespectful, because the way this friend acted, in my opinion, was completely out of line. My entitled extended family is furious with me and my partner after we decided to have no children at our wedding, as they are all now freaking out on us and making this into a bigger deal than it definitely needs to be. And at this point, I'm wondering if we are the jerk or if we're somehow justified for doing things the way that we want. Here's what happened. Okay, so we set a no children rule for our wedding. We're having a small wedding with maybe 100 close friends and family, and it's one where you wear a black tie, there will be an open bar, and there's going to be a big band. We've been clear on this rule from the beginning of our wedding planning, and we communicated this a year prior to our wedding when we sent out the save the dates. For context, we're in our mid-20s, and none of our close friends are married or even thinking about children. Our family friends are all 60 plus years old too, so their children are grown up. Since then, we've had to flex our rule to include our 4-year-old niece and our 2-year-old nephew as a flower girl and page boy, but they will be accompanied by their nanny who will take them home right afterwards. Before sending out the official invites, we thought that it would be courteous to let other family members know that we are sticking to our no children rule. However, this has caused major backlash. A cousin claims that they see the groom as a brother and is sending nasty long messages about how she's upset, isn't sleeping, can't believe we don't see her child in the same way we see our niece and nephew, refusing to attend our wedding, trying to say, oh, I'll bring her to the ceremony only and then I'll leave. But regardless of what's happening, we've held our stance on no means no. On top of this, the aunt is also sending long messages about how the entire side of the family is upset. The child in question isn't just another child, but should be considered part of our immediate family, and that the dead uncle would be so disappointed with our decision. Before my fiance and I were engaged, this side of the family hated my fiance as she is from a different religion. They gave her years of awful treatment and tried to break us up. And you know what? They haven't apologized, and my fiance has moved on from the past. We didn't think a no child rule would be so controversial, but now we're getting nasty stuff from this side of the family about the no child rule. So seriously, are we the jerks for enforcing this? Because right now we don't know what to do. No, you didn't do anything wrong. These people are so weird. You literally told them a year ago that you don't want kids at your wedding. How is that hard to understand? Like seriously, it would not take that much to find a babysitter and just have the kids babysat for this one ceremony. These people are also acting like you did this on purpose just in spite of them, when in reality, this is just how you want your wedding done. And I think you have every right to treat your wedding any way that you want. So yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. These people suck. And the fact that they're guilt tripping you, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. My entitled mom is pressuring me to introduce my boyfriend to her, despite the fact that I really don't want to do that. Because after a lifetime of having her judge literally everybody in my life, from friends to partners, I'm now extremely hesitant to share this partner with her, as I don't want her to criticize them in the way that she's done to others in the past. Here's what happened. Firstly, I would just like to say that I genuinely do love my mom. She supported me in almost everything, was there for me during my recent hard times, so I do not hate her, nor do I have any reason to. Now, for a bit of background, I'm 22 years old and I'm about to turn 23, but ever since I was little, I was very shamed for everything by my family, namely my looks, what I enjoyed to eat, when I would get sweat stains on my shirt, my private journal that they found, my toys, etc. And this is including my mom, and I feel like I grew up to be extremely private and secretive, avoiding any chance to get shamed again at all cost, by rarely, if ever, sharing details about my personal life and what I like. My mom has a habit of judging people extremely harsh and always finding a flaw in somebody. We could be walking on the street and a gorgeous girl could be passing us by, and if I mentioned to her, wow, she's pretty, she would say something like, yeah, I don't know, her thighs are kind of big, and her hair is so thin, and her dress is ugly. The worst part is that she does it to my friends as well. I'll show her a group picture, and she'll start judging every single thing about everybody in that picture. She will make mean remarks to the face of my closest friends that she had met plenty of times, such as mentioning so many times how wrong a certain makeup looks on my friend's face. I still live with her, even though my biggest wish since I was a teenager has been to move out, but I simply can't afford that right now because I am a student. Because of this, I had always hidden every boy I've dated from my parents, especially from my mom. When she did find out about somebody, she wouldn't hesitate to completely destroy him as much as she could to my face. He could be the most gorgeous guy, and she would always overly point out every small thing that she finds as a flaw. When she won't point out his looks, she'll find the smallest detail about their personality, over-exaggerate it, and make it seem like they're such a loser. Now, with that in mind, I have been dating my current boyfriend for a year and a half now. She found out about this when we were 2 months into our relationship, and ever since then, she mentions how he's impolite and rude for not coming to meet her. It's not like he's a complete stranger to her, as my brother and him were friends for many years, and they often hang out in the same group of friends. After a couple of months, while still constantly pressuring me, I mentioned to her that I don't view meeting the parents as necessary right now, that I am old enough to decide my life with someone for myself, and if I were to get to the point of being engaged engage with somebody, then yes, surely she would meet them. Well, when I said this, she got very angry and said that this is not normal, that she will always need to meet them way before it gets to that point, that she finds it rude of me to hide them from her. Now, I did not elaborate on why I'm doing it, but she did not stop complaining about not having met him. But I simply do not want to hear her harsh, rude, and aggressive judging about my partner, which is the exact same thing she did with every partner or friend from the past. I don't want to give her the opportunity to mock anything about him to his face. So seriously, am I in the wrong here? Is it really that wrong to wait for things to be serious like an engagement until someone gets to meet my parents? Because right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, based on what you described, I don't blame you for doing things the way that you're doing it right now. Your mom sounds obnoxious, and it sounds like she really wants to insult everything about your life. Like she really just doesn't want you to have anybody in your life. So seriously, I don't blame you for a second for being like, wait, you are not getting involved in this, because your mom sounds incredibly judgmental in a way that is completely inappropriate. My entitled friend refuses to pay me back for any of the stuff that her dog ruined at my house, because after she left her dog unattended for nearly 10 days, locked up in our guest bedroom, that dog literally went to the bathroom everywhere, forcing me to replace my couch, my mattress, and even my carpets. But despite the mounting cost of everything I have to replace, my friend refuses to take responsibility for the utter damage that she caused. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my childhood best friend and I live in different countries, and we have a small tradition where she travels to spend Christmas with me every year. I help with money for plane tickets, and she stays at my house where I also provide food. Last Christmas she came, but this time she brought her dog, as she got a puppy in January of 2024. I then asked her if it was already trained, and she told me that it was. I also let her know that I don't like pets on my beds or couch, and asked if I needed to buy something for her dog to sleep in. Well, she told me the dog will be okay with a pillow beside her bed. I also bought some cleaning supplies, and I left it in the guest bedroom that she could use if she needed it. Unfortunately, when she arrived, I noticed that the dog was absolutely untrained. Now, I was trying not to be a jerk about it, and I was just trying to enjoy our time together, but I told her that she needed to take her dog out often because she wasn't doing it. Like, for example, the day she arrived, she said she was too tired and the dog didn't need it. Then on the second day, it was too cold to walk outside. And on the third day, we have plans. So she left the dog locked in the room all day. She was here for 10 days, and the dog was taken outside for walks maybe 5 times. And one of those times was by me, and the other was by my husband. The dog slept on the bed, the couch, and left hairs everywhere, jumping on people all the time, and it was biting. But I started to notice a strong smell coming from the guest bedroom. Well, to make a long story short, the carpet, a couch, and bed mattresses are absolutely ruined by the smell of urine, and it is disgusting. I tried different cleaning methods, but it smells really bad. I then talked to my husband, and we decided that we needed to replace everything. I was then texting my friend, and I let her know that I would need to replace everything because of the strong smell. Well, she stopped replying the moment I told her, and for 2 days she was radio silent, which is weird because we are always texting memes or random stuff all the time. And to be honest, I was waiting for her to apologize for the trouble, but I got nothing from her. Now, this is when I may be the jerk, but I got really mad at her for deciding to ghost me instead of using her big girl words. I texted her a picture of the shopping cart of everything that we needed to replace, and I even told her the total of the stuff her dog ruined and that we needed to buy. And then I asked her how much she thought she could help us out with in terms of paying back for what she destroyed. Well, she read my message, it went silent for 4 hours, and then she replied saying that I was tacky for asking money from someone that, according to her, was just a guest in my house. It was back and forth with her telling me that she didn't think the smell was that bad because she cleaned everything just like she cleaned her own house, that the dog in her house behaves perfectly fine, so maybe it was just my house. But I told her it smelled really bad. She then asked me, well, if someone goes to your house and a child breaks something, would you be calling them back asking for money? And I responded back by saying, well, I would at least expect an apology. She then says to me, so this is what it's about. You want me to beg for forgiveness for something a dog cannot control? But I just simply told her, well, maybe you should try to not be a horrible dog owner. So seriously, am I the jerk in the way that I handled this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is not your fault at all. You are completely justified for being pissed off about this. This lady literally left that dog in a locked room for 10 days and only walked that dog, 5 times? It's like, are you kidding me right now? That dog needs to be let out probably 3 times or more a day. Did she really think that dog was gonna be okay as a puppy, locked up in a room with nowhere to go and nowhere to use the bathroom? Seriously, this is so messed up. And you know for a fact that she is absolutely absolutely guilty of like not doing anything to take care of this. She probably walked out of your house and knew immediately like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. And from the sounds of it, she's willing to ruin your friendship instead of fixing this and being like, oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. Here, let me send you some money. Because yes, she is the jerk in this situation. And the fact that she's not trying to like fix this in any kind of way, in my opinion, shows exactly the kind of person that she is. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for leaving my aunt's house after failing to convince her that she is being scammed? Because right now, my mom's upset with me and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male, and my mom asked me to talk to my aunt about something. She said that my aunt is being scammed, but it's not a romance scam though. Instead, she's convinced she's talking to her favorite author who needs someone to pay her bills for her while she works on a new book. Mom said that since my aunt has no children of her own, and I'm the closest thing that she has to a son, she might listen to me. Well, I dropped by. I asked how she's doing, and then I told her that my mom told me about what's going on. My aunt muttered something about her meddling older sisters before telling me that she appreciates my concern, but there is nothing to worry about. I told her that her favorite author sold more than 20 million copies in the United States alone and had her works translated into more than 40 languages, meaning that she doesn't need anyone paying her bills for her. And even though I said that, my aunt still wouldn't listen. But I did not immediately give up. I told her I care about her and I don't want to see her scammed, but she insisted that it's not a scam. She just made a bunch of posts on social media about the books, and the author DM'd her asking for money. But I told her that's exactly how these celebrity catfishes operate, and I even showed her examples of it on YouTube, but she refused to watch any of the videos. After half an hour, I said, okay, I'm going home now, see you later. And when my mom asked me why I came home so early, I told her that I love my aunt, but I don't know how I can convince someone who doesn't want to be convinced. She said I shouldn't have given up so easily on someone that I love. Well, fast forward, and I called my aunt and I repeated the point about the number of books the author sold. And she said the author told her that she made bad investments. I then told my aunt that even if that were the case, the authors get advance fees, so they won't starve while writing their books. Considering her favorite author has appeared on the New York Times bestseller list several times, she can probably expect a sizable advance. Then I told my aunt that if she still doesn't believe me since she sees me as a kid, we can go to the bank and talk to the people there, or even the cops. I also told her that I can contact the author. I've looked up her official website and Facebook, so I can message her in order to ask for direct confirmation. Well, my aunt told me not to do anything yet and that she will think about it. I will talk to her later and just give her time to think about it for now. But seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for not staying longer the first time? Because right now, I'm not sure what's gonna happen. No, you're not the jerk here. Your mom is completely wrong. If I had a family member who was not listening to anything I say after half an hour, and they're denying evidence or any kind of like, I don't know, proof that this is a scam, at that point I would be like, okay, whatever, I'm giving up and I'm leaving. And I just can't stand when people are that stubborn, because it's like, think about this for a second. We're talking about a famous author. They've probably made millions of dollars off of all those books. So there's no way in the world they're ever going to you and being like, oh, I need some money, help me pay my bills. Like, no person in media is ever going to go to their fans like that unless they are actually scamming you. And I know we're all thinking of many examples in media and just pop culture who have done that, and it really is unfortunate. So no, you're not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My dad is constantly getting me sick because he does nothing to prevent spreading his germs. And at this point, I'm honestly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My father is the kind of person who does not care whether he passes on his bugs to you or not. And mind you, I have a great relationship with him and I love him despite what he does. To provide context, ever since I was a kid, I have suffered from chronic issues with my sinuses. I've had surgery for that, but it just doesn't seem to have worked. Anytime I get a cold, I feel miserable for almost 2 weeks. I become a mucus production machine, and that mucus gets infected, and I end up getting a pretty bad sinus infection that only clears after a course of 10 days of antibiotics and steroids. Every time that goes by, my infections are getting worse in severity and length, and I get approximately 5 to 6 episodes like that every single year. Now here's the real issue. At least half of these episodes are a consequence of my father getting sick and spreading his cold to me. My father gets sick often because he does not seem to care that he gets colds, because his are usually not very bad, and he makes no effort to avoid getting sick. Well, one time when he was sick, instead of telling my mom that he was sick, my father denies getting sick and refuses to go to the doctor. He will not take cold medicine or put on a mask, etc., and he just acts completely normal being around anyone, hence why he's spreading his virus. And then when I get sick, which is very bad due to my nose issues, he does not acknowledge that he passed the virus onto me and claims that I must have gotten the virus from somebody else. I have tried to explain my situation, ask him to please try not to get sick in the first place, and if he is sick, please tell me so that I can protect myself. But even then, he still just does not care. Well, I'm writing this as I have another one of those sinus episodes that honestly is not going away despite medicine, and this has prevented me from sleeping for 3 nights in a row. Now, at this point, what options do I have beyond moving out? What do you think of my father's attitude? Am I making this too much of a big deal, or am I in the wrong for acting the way that I am? What should I do? Oh man, this is so frustrating. There's nothing more annoying than someone who's blatantly sick, being incredibly lazy, and then getting everybody else sick. And it's like, wait a second, I know for a fact I didn't get this from anybody else. And sure, you could get sick from anybody, but seriously, if I'm willing to bet, it probably was the guy who was sick and sniffling all day in your house. So yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like moving out might be your only option, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would be talking to my dad and be like, listen, I love you, but I just can't keep doing this. You getting sick affects me negatively because then I get sick and it is so much worse. And you would think that he would know this after you've had surgery about this, because in my opinion, his attitude is so dismissive and it's honestly just so unfair that you have to deal with this in the first place. Am I the jerk for leaving my sister-in-law's house on Christmas, all because there was someone there that me and my husband definitely did not want to see? And despite the fact that we tried to do this in a subtle manner, my sister-in-law's husband cussed me and my husband out as we were leaving. And now I am blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I would really like to get some insight from everybody on what happened at our family Christmas. On the 23rd, my sister-in-law had messaged me and told me that they were throwing a small Christmas party, and she told me that her sister-in-law and her in-laws and her parents are all going to be joining them, and they would really like for us to come along as well. Very specifically, she named everybody who was going to be there, and this will be relevant later on. Later that night, I showed my husband the text messages and said it would be really nice if we joined them for Christmas, as his whole family doesn't get along, and it would be nice for his mom to see at least some of the siblings interacting. On Christmas Day, I woke up early to make some things to bring over to their house and wrapped up the gifts that I had prepared for everybody. As we approached their house, we saw a vehicle that belonged to a person that me and my husband both don't get along with, as this is someone we've had major problems with in the past. I told my husband that maybe it's just a car that looks like his, because his sister knows that we would not come over if we knew that this person was going to be there. We decided to walk in and give the gifts and say hi to everybody, and both agreed that if said person was invited, that we would just come up to his sister and brother-in-law and let them know that we are actually going to be leaving. Well, unfortunately for us, he was there, and we didn't want to make a big scene, so I came up to his sister in the kitchen and I said that I'm really sorry that we're leaving, and that if I knew that he was invited, we would have just told her right away that we weren't going to come. And I felt very bad for making the situation uncomfortable. She looked really disappointed but understood and decided to walk us to the door. Now at this point, everything was fine. That is until her husband ran in and started yelling and cussing and calling all of us names. This was pretty out of character for him, but also very inappropriate nonetheless, especially because in my opinion, we didn't do anything wrong by leaving Christmas when we are uncomfortable with being around someone that we don't like, and we wanted to avoid any conflict and not make a scene. Well, he kept screaming and calling us names and telling us that he can invite whoever he wants to his house, which we both never told him that he couldn't. The screaming continued, and his kids, in-laws, and parents all came along to see what was going on, with me and my husband just quietly putting our shoes on. He then slammed the door in our face. So right now I'm curious, does this make me the jerk for leaving Christmas when we were unaware that a person we do not get along with was invited to this as well, especially when his sister went out of her way to text me a list of everybody who is gonna be there, but somehow leaving this person out? What should I do? Okay, this seems really set up in my opinion. It almost seems like they brought that person on purpose just so there would be some kind of confrontation, or as some kind of excuse for this brother-in-law to finally freak out on you guys. Like seriously, this seems really sketchy and I don't like what's happening here. Like why would they send an entire list of everybody that's gonna be there, but then conveniently leave out the person who causes a lot of problems in your life? Like that seems super sketchy and I just don't think this has like good intentions. So no, you're not the jerk at all for leaving this party, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing, regardless of what the sister or the husband had to say about it. I'm worried that I might be overreacting after my dad basically let his girlfriend move in after I said I wasn't okay with it, because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female and I've been upset over the past month since my dad's girlfriend moved in. My parents divorced a few years ago, and since then my dad has started dating a new woman. A few months ago, he asked if she could move in, and he told me he was asking because I was the most important thing to him and he would never allow her to move in without my okay. Now, I've only known her for a little less than a year and I'm going through a lot of stress stress with the end of high school, so I said I was not okay with it, but that she could move in when I was going off to college. He pushed the question a little more, but eventually said okay. Throughout the next few months, he continuously asked me if she could move in. I continued to listen to his point, but I never changed my mind. I knew that having her move in would be a huge change for me, as I have never had any siblings or permanent residents in my house besides my mom and dad. I don't dislike her, but having my space be invaded and learning to live with someone that I felt like I didn't even know that well was bound to be a stressor. It was also a big deal to me because my life is already changing preparing for college. In my mind, I've been preparing to go off to college for a while, and having something like this happen before that big change has thrown me off. I also didn't want her to move in because I don't like her family. Her youngest son is a handful and hard to deal with, and now comes home from college to my house on some weekends and holidays. Her second oldest is kind of a jerk, even though I don't have to deal with him that much. Her oldest daughter is actually nice, and I do like her, but I really would rather not be associated with her whole family. I'm having a lot of trouble dealing with them being forced into my family because not only do I not like them, but I already have a family. My dad also recently tricked me into coming to her family's Christmas, which she hosted at our house, by telling me that we were going to spend the day together, even suggesting options like restaurants and activities. It felt so strange being the stranger at someone else's Christmas in my own house. I've started to come to the conclusion that I will need to move out because it has caused me a lot of stress to live in this house at this time. But my dad and his girlfriend are acting as if I'm overreacting. It breaks my heart to leave my pets and the house I have memories in, but I'm honestly not sure what else I could possibly do. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from here. This honestly really does seem very annoying. There's changes happening in your life and it seems like you're not totally receptive to it. And trust me, I completely get that. I understand that you're not willing to let someone else into your house, especially when that person is not your mom. So hopefully this all works out in some kind of way, and hopefully you're able to find some kind of solution. Because while I don't think you're completely overreacting, I do think you have the right to have a steady and stable home. And hopefully something like that can happen in the future. An entitled old jerk loses his mind after I try to let the women standing behind me get off the plane before we do. So I decided to get some petty revenge by not only waiting for everybody to go ahead of us, but also denying this guy any opportunity to pass me up in the process. Here's what happened. So I just landed from my layover and I was in the very back of the plane, second from last row. The back was empty. I had the row to myself, and across the aisle was the older jerk of this story who also had the row to himself, literally watching the news the entire time. And this was the same deal in the last row. Two women each having their own row. Well, we land, the seatbelt sign comes off, and people start to stand. I then stand up and he's still sitting. One of the women stands up and lines up behind me, and that's where I start to hear him go crazy. He says out loud, "Where do you think you're going? No one's getting off yet. Sit down and stop crowding us." The woman apologizes and says, "I'm really sorry, I just need to use the bathroom." He then mutters something unintelligible and just acts like a complete jerk. I then tell her she can go ahead of me, and that's when the guy leapt up and grabbed both seats, physically blocking her from moving. He goes, "No, no, no. We get off row by row. We don't go ahead of people and we don't push and shove. We get off row by row." I then start saying, "Okay, calm down, buddy. It's not that big of a deal." But he just kept repeating, "We go row by row." He brings his guard stance down and she pushes past him. And right then, this guy looks like he's about to keel over from anger. Now the lineup is just me and then him, as well as the other woman behind us who looks disgruntled. So I say, "Okay, buddy, calm down," again, and we just start walking. 2 rows ahead of us is a couple still sitting down, getting their baby packed up. Now they clearly have a few minutes to go before they're ready. So I stop behind them and I do the same stance that he just did. I say out loud, "You guys take your time." I parked right there and I made sure this entitled old jerk wasn't going anywhere. Now the dad says it's okay and they're going to be just a moment, but I say very loudly, "Oh no, we get off row by row." That's right, row by row. You guys go right ahead. The couple had definitely heard our spat and knew exactly what was going on. And as a result, we waited a solid 3 to 4 minutes until they finally got off. But the fun didn't stop there, because as we got further ahead, I did it again with another woman who was waiting for the flight attendant to bring her bag. This lady was more confused when I insisted that we wait, but she went along with it and I just kept saying very loudly that we get off this plane row by row. Now the first time this entitled old jerk said, "This is stupid," but I just said back to him row by row, and the second time he was silent. But I know for a fact that I certainly wasted a good 5 or 6 minutes of his life, all because he couldn't afford to let those women go ahead of us. I love this story because this is one of those you mess around and you find out. Like seriously, this is not that big of a deal. You're all in the back of the plane as it is, so you know for a fact you're going to be waiting pretty much all day to even get off that plane. So for him to be like, no one's getting ahead of me. It's like, dude, you're not in first class. You're literally in the back of the plane acting like an idiot, holding up two women who clearly could have just gone ahead of you and it wouldn't have caused any problems. This guy was acting like he was some kind of VIP, like that is so weird. So seriously, I love the fact that you got revenge on this guy because the way he was acting was incredibly inappropriate. My friend deliberately disappeared from my life after graduation, all after they used me so that they wouldn't get in trouble with school administration. So in retaliation, I decided to get some petty revenge by literally ruining their Spotify playlist in a way that is completely unrepairable. Here's what happened. Okay, for the sake of this story, let's call my friend in question Bailey. Bailey is not their real name. So I was friends with Bailey throughout most of college. We were pretty close and would always hang out. I'd drive them places, we would organize and throw parties together, which will be important later on. I would help their partner out with a place to stay or rides whenever they wanted, etc. So I think it's safe to say that I thought we were pretty good friends. Sometime during our final year, Bailey, along with a few others, was a part of a long and pretty nasty conflict with other people I was acquainted with. This conflict ended up being escalated to the school administration, and they ended up calling in everyone named as a potential witness to testify so that they could have all sides and all info to make a decision regardless of the situation. Throughout all of this, Bailey would check in on me and encourage me to speak out, remind me of things that had happened, and made sure our story stayed consistent. Throughout this, I felt like I was being a good friend by speaking the truth and defending my friends from attacks while making sure the other individuals involved would be held accountable for whatever happened. Well, fast forward to the week leading up to graduation, and I was reaching out to a lot of people so that I could get a meal in with them before we all left for good. I tried reaching out to Bailey and the group that we were a part of so that we could get a meal together, but I got no answer. After insisting, I was told that one of them, not the friend in question, wasn't allowed to hang out with people of my gender because their partner didn't allow it. So I didn't press the matter further, and I decided that I'd just try and see these people individually at some point. And not to spoil it, but that never happened. And the same thing happened with graduation photos. I didn't get any with Bailey or that group. A few days after graduation, I went to send Bailey something on social media, only to realize I was blocked by them on everything. After talking to some other friends who had been abroad, they confirmed that Bailey told people after graduation that they were going to use me to gain leverage during their troubles with the school administration, and then they were going to block me, which was shocking to me because this person never showed any signs of disliking me, nor did anything happen for them to feel that way about me. All of this leads to today when I found an old device I haven't used in 3 years. It turns out Bailey had logged into Spotify on this device of mine for an event but never logged out, and after all this time, I finally got a chance to enact some sort of revenge. So I ended up deleting all of their playlists and unfollowing any and all artist playlists that they had saved. By the time I was done, they had no music left and had logged out of their account as to prevent anybody from knowing it was me. So sure, it is kind of petty, but you know what? Bailey screwed me over in a serious way. And while I am still upset about it, I'm really glad that I no longer have to be around you. Oh man, Bailey sounds like a terrible person. They literally used you in a way that honestly is so inappropriate. And honestly, the way this ended is kind of like the way it always ends in other situations. You don't really get that satisfying ending, and you just try to move on from the crappy situation. So I think it's fantastic that you got some kind of revenge on this person, because the way they acted towards you, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. My entitled extended family demands that they be allowed to build an entirely new house in our backyard. And now that we're being told about this literally at the last second, my aunt is on her way to try and sort out the details. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so honestly, how do I even start this? A few years back, I think maybe about 2023, we started having some issues concerning the house we currently live in. The usual family drama caused by golden children, namely my aunt mainly at the moment, of who gets the house and etc. when grandma passes away. There's been fights concerning putting legal paperwork in order, to my grandmother and aunt wanting to sell the house right under our noses, to wanting to take the whole basement that's currently my brother's workshop, where they would toss all of his stuff out to make an apartment for my aunt and uncle when they come to visit here. They have plots to throw me, my mom, and my brother out of the house, to even my aunt accusing my mom of mistreating my grandmother. We've had everything happen practically, but recently some things came up that really made this so much worse. My grandmother came back from staying with my aunt and uncle for the holidays out in the States, and this is where she apparently put them through heck and back. And for reference, my grandma is a huge narcissist, but somehow, despite all of that, my aunt and grandma made plans to build a house in the backyard for my aunt. And this is all without telling us until the very last minute. So it starts off like this. Me, my mom, and my brother are in the living room when my grandma comes down and says the following. My grandma says, "Grandson, I would like to talk to you." My brother then jumps in with suspicion and says, "What do you want?" Whenever you start a sentence like that, it's because you want something. But my grandma said, No, I just wanted to ask you a question. question, just out of curiosity. Your aunt wants to build a house in the backyard. Would that even be possible? Well, my brother then raised his eyebrow, already smelling the next round of family conflict. He then said, well, you could, but it would be illegal. And the house would just most likely collapse because, for one, there's a sewer drainage system back there. Secondly, the ground back there isn't solid at all, so it's a big risk making a house back there when the ground is sinking. Third, you can't just build a house right behind this house because you'd have no proper exit in case of emergencies. Also, you'd have to segregate the land, and both mom, uncle, and you would need to sign that you're giving that part to my aunt. And also, you need to get permissions and permits to build back there if you want to do it legally, which will be near impossible. Then again though, it's not like aunt is gonna listen. She'll do what she wants even if someone is telling her that's a bad idea. Now at this point, my mom and I are just silently listening to the entire thing, and we're actively thinking in our heads, oh man, here we go again. Because trust me, this is just the beginning of our troubles. My grandma then says, oh, well, you all sort that out with your aunt. I clean my hands of this. I have nothing to do with this. Middle daughter, you talk to your sister. And then after that, my aunt texts my mom something along the lines of, hey sister, so I've been thinking about building a house for myself in the backyard over there. You know, since I'm not getting any younger here. My health isn't great at the moment, and if anything happens to my boyfriend, I won't get the house. And the house will go to his kids, and they'll most likely just sell the house. And then I won't have anywhere to go. I've been thinking about this for a long time now, and I brought it up to mom, and she's on board. And I already talked to our brother yesterday, and he's okay with it. But I really can't wait any longer because of my health. I've been waiting to get the basement for 5 years already, but it's like pulling teeth with you. I really don't understand what your deal is. You always act like we're attacking you, but we're not. I don't understand why we can't all get along like family and communicate properly. If it makes you feel better, brother has agreed to give up his share of the house and give it to you. But here's the thing, all of this was a complete lie. It turns out she had been already talking to a guy to build the house and made plans for what she wants it to look like, and because she has the money for it, she had this thought out for a long time now. And we only know this because my brother found out from our second cousin. Now supposedly my aunt is coming out here to sort all of this out soon, so I'm honestly so worried about how this is gonna go down because at this point I really don't know what to do. Your aunt is unbelievably toxic. Think about it for a second. She's like, oh man, I've already talked to your brother, I'm gonna build a house back there. I just want to communicate properly, like seriously, what's the problem? And it's like, yeah, I wonder why we can't communicate properly. And it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's because you want to build a house in the backyard? For starters, the brother in this story literally said everything I was thinking. The house is not gonna be solid, it's gonna fall apart, there's no drainage or like water system. It's like, what are we doing right now? This is crazy. Is she gonna tap into the other house to try and like siphon energy off of that? Like, this lady is so selfish. This is so dumb. And it doesn't help that the grandma's like, okay, I'm washing my hands of this. Because it's like, wait a second, you've clearly been colluding in this. You've obviously been like having discussions about this in general, and now you're gonna try and be like, oh, I have nothing to do with it now. This is no longer my problem, see ya. It's like, no, I don't think so. That's not how this works. If you're in for a penny, then you're in for a pound. So yeah, your aunt is incredibly crazy. She really thought she could get away with this literally by lying to your face, especially when she had everything set up already. And I guarantee you, if this went south in some kind of way, where the local government got involved and said, hey, you can't build a second house next to this other house, she would then suddenly turn into this big victim of the situation and somehow try to blame it on you, your mom, and your brother. You know, the people who live there and occupy that property. So seriously, for the sake of your family, I hope all of this gets worked out, because what you're going through right now, in my opinion, sounds incredibly obnoxious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother bought me a present for Christmas that I have explicitly stated I have no interest in, and now I feel very stuck and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm 29 years old, and my mother got me a pair of Birkenstock sandals for the summer for Christmas, and I absolutely hate them, and I've told her this before. I sound so ungrateful and I hate my attitude, but it's also what I know this represents. She keeps going on about these shoes, and every time before she gave them to me, I said I have no interest in them, which is the truth. I have sandals already, which do me fine, meaning that I did not need new shoes. Well, she has her own, and I feel she's trying to inflict this on me. Well, every Sunday when I would see her in the summer on a day off, she would comment on what I was wearing. She would say, why are you wearing sandals? Or on another day be like, well, at least you're wearing sandals today. And at this point, I'm already dreading the summer now because I know this will be the existence of every Sunday. She'll say to me, good, you're wearing your Birkenstocks. They're great shoes, aren't they? And I have no choice but to go along with it, or else I'm gonna be seen as the worst person in the world. I have stated on so many occasions that I do not like the brand. I don't find the shoes comfortable at all. I'm also trying to improve my spending and saving habits, so I refuse to buy things I don't need a duplicate of and cut down on what I don't need, basically making this quality over quantity. And that's another reason I can't stand having the new shoes. I know I didn't pay for them, but I also do not need them. My current ones work perfectly, even at around 6 years old. I wore them all summer long and I love them. I went to Rome in August doing around 30 to 40,000 steps a day, and they really were ideal. She does it constantly with 2 pairs of shoes that she has already bought me. Whenever I wear them, she comments or asks, "Oh, you're lucky to have those shoes. Are they not super comfortable?" And she does this every single time. And look, they are only shoes. It's absolutely harmless, but it's still very strange that she has to do it every single time. I think my issue lies more with what I know this represents rather than the shoes. I remember looking at them when I got them in the box, and there's even a separate toe slit as well, which I completely detest. I feel so ungrateful because her intentions were good, and she spent a lot of money too. So seriously, what do you think? Why is she trying to push this onto me when I've said I'm not interested? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I do think I understand where you're coming from, but also it really does seem like your mom cares about you. Like, I think you're reading this right by basically assuming, yeah, she means well and this really was supposed to be a good thing, but that doesn't ignore the fact that you really don't want them. You seriously just don't need these things. And I also can't ignore the fact that she is constantly talking to you about this, because if that were me, I would be super annoyed. So I know if I was in that situation, I would probably try and go about this in a casual way and try to go around her in a way where it's like, yes, I'm wearing them to satisfy your need to see them, but also I'm gonna mix it up and wear something else. And if she does try to be like, wait, where's the Birkenstock? You could just be like, oh, I decided to switch it up today and wear something else. And just try to keep it casual overall, regardless of however she acts. So yeah, hopefully this works out, because honestly, I can completely understand why you would be getting frustrated. An entitled Karen comes to my grocery store demanding that we cook a turkey for her so that she can have it for Thanksgiving. But despite the fact that we have signs literally all over the store explaining to her that we're out of product, she still was not having any of that, choosing instead to act incredibly entitled and very obnoxious. Here's what happened. During college, I had 2 jobs. One was at a pizza restaurant, and the other was at a localized but very prolific grocery store chain. Think a few hundred stores all in the same couple of counties in the same US state. I primarily worked in the deli and hot food section of the grocery store. We had a very nice commercial rotisserie oven that we could spit something like 30 chickens on at once. Now, for the chickens we used, and it is crucial to note, were not taken from other stores' meat section, but they were shipped to us separately from the supplier. They were sized up, contained packets of the seasoning mix that we were supposed to sprinkle on them, were already pre-cleaned, and had been mechanically drilled through so we could easily spit them onto the large rotating arms of the commercial grade rotisserie. This last step is crucial, because if you try to force an improperly prepped bird onto one of those very large spit arms, the odds are high the bird will fall apart into the oven and start to burn up and smoke. Usually, we cooked enough chickens each day to meet everybody's demands, but every once in a while when we had an unusually busy day and ran out when it was too late to make more, we would have a customer bring a whole chicken from the meat section and ask if we could cook it. Well, mercifully, we would explain all of the above, plus the fact that we weren't going to run the entire expensive oven for just one bird. People would then typically say, oh, okay, I understand, and then leave without pestering us further. In fact, most people began the inquiry by saying, I know the answer is probably no, but here's what I want to do. So overall, they weren't too disappointed. Sometimes we'd get a remark from our manager afterwards about how we should have prepped more birds, but that was all the extent of it. Well, with that bit of context out of the way, this is where our story starts. It was well publicized that this chain of stores around the United States during Thanksgiving offered a pre-cooked meal special. But here's the thing, you had to pre-order it well in advance. The reason being is that part of that special involved us stocking a fixed amount of turkeys that were specially prepped for the oven, just like our chickens usually were, and that way we could cook it in the rotisserie. In fact, we would have a special crew to stay after closing the day before Thanksgiving just to cook these turkeys and their accompanying sides overnight. That way people could just pick them up Thanksgiving morning. Once we had taken enough pre-orders to account for all of our turkeys, we couldn't take any more orders because the supplier wouldn't send any more turkeys. This was well publicized in all of our TV ads. This was also on signs on the door and the deli and the cash register, not to mention the website. I mean, if you name it, it described it. Well, one year we were swamped with pre-orders, and in fact, we actually ran out of pre-drilled turkeys about 10 days prior to Thanksgiving, whereas usually it's about 3 or 4 days prior. My manager, foreseeing potential disaster, bought some really bright neon colored paper and wrote in black bold letters that we could no longer take pre-orders and that we were out of turkeys. He posted these signs all over the store, every entrance, every exit, the frozen section, the produce section, the butcher, the dry goods, and of course our own section in the deli and hot foods. Well, Well, we get through the next couple of days just fine, and his plans seem to have worked. But then, the day before Thanksgiving, an entitled old Karen enters our story. And yes, she had that certain haircut. Quite literally with one of my manager's childish neon with black letters, you can't possibly miss it signs right next to her. She starts giving off this sob story and starts begging and pleading with me, trying to somehow get a Thanksgiving meal pre-order in for her. I try to be as nice to her as I possibly can, initially thinking that she's distraught, but then she suddenly runs off. I think that's the end of it, but then she comes back with a truly gigantic turkey from the frozen meat section. She looks at me and says, "Here, I brought you a turkey, put it in with the others." Now, at this point, I have to take a deep breath and try to explain why I can't do that. The bird isn't prepped, the bird is too big and won't cook at the same speed as the others, and I also don't know how long she's had it out of the freezer, so it's also a sanitation issue. Not to mention that it's not drilled through, and I would tear it up trying to spit it. Well, she's having none of that. She just keeps on whining, "You can't be out of turkeys, there's so many in the back. I'll get a smaller one, I really need this." And naturally, I'm thinking to myself, why did you even think you would be able to come in the day before Thanksgiving anyways, when the store is slammed? Plus, the ad said, "Order now, order soon." And we've got signs saying that we ran out of turkeys 9 days ago. But of course, I can't say that. Finally, she swears under her breath a little and then she leaves. And I was just glad that it didn't go worse. But I know for a fact that she complained to corporate because, of course, my management came up to me and said that I got a complaint. I hate people who act like this, like seriously, it's just so annoying. There's no other way of putting it. They have signs plastered all over the store. "We don't have any more pre-orders, I'm sorry, but you can't get it here." And yet this lady's like, "Oh, come on, my situation is specific and just completely out of the ordinary. Cook this turkey for me because I need it right now." And it's like, seriously, your lack of planning is not my emergency, and I am not going to be held hostage by your stupid decisions. So yeah, that entitled Karen was very stupid, and I'm so sorry that you had to put up with that. An entitled teacher demands that I get out of a classroom earlier than I signed up for, as she claims that she needs 15 minutes to prepare her stupid lesson, thus putting me in a really bad spot. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a college as a teacher's assistant and as a tutor. I only do science classes, but I am an assistant for one particular science class. I have my tutoring sessions in a room in the library twice a week for 30 minutes. Because it is a difficult class, we go quickly to cover everything and take up the whole 30 minutes. I also signed up for this room at this time before the semester even started. And let's say this was from 11:30 until 12 o'clock. On my very first day, I was told that I would need to be out exactly at 12 because there's a class after me. And I think to myself, okay, that's no problem. It takes me 1 minute to pack up and get out of the way. Easy peasy. Well, 15 minutes into my first session, this woman walks in looking very confused and asks me what's going on. I explain that I'm having my tutoring session, and if she's waiting for the class, it starts at 1. She then goes back and forth with me, perplexed about what I'm doing there, and finally mentions that she's the art teacher and she needs 15 minutes to prepare for her class. Now, it's a huge room, so I said I didn't mind if she gets ready in the back half of the room. Now, I was well within my rights to tell her no, that I have the room until 12, but I'm a nice person. Well, every single session, her students start coming in 15 minutes early, and I nicely tell them they can sit in the back of the room and that their class will start soon. It's a little disruptive, but it's not too bad. We're all getting into the swing of things after all. The art teacher, however, will come in early and very rudely tell me I need to hurry up and be out early. And she is so rude and condescending. She comes in and interrupts my session that I signed up for, also that she can start her class early. I understand that she needs time to prepare, but if she needed 15 extra minutes, then she should have signed up for 11:45 and not 12 o'clock. And she can't expect to just kick out whoever's in there. I am so fed up with her unprofessional and rude behavior. I've talked with my supervisor about it, who says I'm in the right and I have every right to be there until 12 o'clock. But it's all really frustrating. I'm thinking of sending an email and sending it to my supervisor and her supervisor, but I don't want to take that route. I just want to do my tutoring in peace and go about my day. I hate that she thinks she's entitled to the room during my time, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Oh man, I think you absolutely should raise this to the next level, because this idiot is literally interrupting your session. She's walking in there 15 minutes early and saying you need to hurry up and get out. Like, in my opinion, at that point, it's time to elevate this immediately. Anyone, and I mean anyone, talking to you like that is completely out of line. It would be at that moment I would be like, oh, you want to talk to me like that? Well then congratulations, I'm gonna get petty and weird. So that would mean if you're not a part of my tutoring session, then congratulations, you're not gonna be in my classroom, because the way she's treating you is absolutely unprofessional and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My idiotic chef at the job I work at complained to corporate that I was slacking off and not doing my job. So I decided to get some petty revenge by exposing the fact that this guy doesn't do anything at work either. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So I got hired as a line cook when I got out of culinary school, and it was for a big hotel chain. I got hired for the day-to-day work, and we had 8 other line cooks and a head chef who was always bragging about his workload and how he spared us from the paper monster. The head chef was, for a better word, absent from the kitchen floor and basically was a pencil pusher. He did the ordering, the stocking, the timesheets, the rosters, as well as the schedules, and communication with HR, the general manager, and he made all the menus. For the most part, the work paid okay, and there was not much hassle. Thing was, the menus that we had to cook were outdated and very uninspiring. And when I say uninspiring, think about a cookbook from 70 years ago. That's basically what I'm talking about. At some point, we as a kitchen team were done with that, and we requested that we make the menus. And the head chef for some reason was happy to oblige. So now here comes the kicker. We had an after-hours menu with simple meals: BLT, pizza, salad, soups, fries, hamburgers. And for some reason, corporate decided that the after-hours menu had to go, and it's going to be replaced by the normal day-to-day menu. Well, this led to the following situation. Almost nobody ordered food during the night shift. It turns out when people come to a hotel late, they are either too tired or too drunk to eat a meal that takes around 15 minutes to serve, or they're in no mood for sauteed salmon in white wine sauce. This went on for like a year, and corporate saw the nosedive in the night shift revenue across the board, and they made the only logical decision to combat this problem. They fired all the night shift line cooks, or relocate them to other hotels if they could not be fired. Of course, the after-hours menu was not changed, nor was it removed, and instead it meant the shift had to be picked up by another. So this is where the tale really begins. I worked there for about 2 years, and I got into some trouble with the head chef as we didn't see eye to eye. This then led to the following situation. I had to pick up almost every single night shift. I would come in at 4 in the afternoon and then leave at around 5 o'clock in the morning. I worked 40 hours on paper, but in reality, I worked around 50. I didn't mind as overtime was paid out, and me as a 21-year-old could do a lot with the paid out overtime. But the thing was, it was so boring. In the beginning, I cleaned the kitchen, checked the walk-ins for spoiled goods, set up a part of the breakfast, and did some minor paperwork. After about 3 weeks, I ran out of work to do. Every 2 or 3 days, I could clean something or check the fridges, but what at first took about an hour, now took like 10 to 15 minutes. So I did the logical thing and I started reading books, watching Netflix, talking to the night manager, starting to experiment with new recipes, and just hanging out with the interns. Basically, I just messed around on company time. So after a while, I got called into the office by the general manager. I got a verbal reprimand for slacking off. When I asked him why, he told me someone told him what I did during the night shift. So of course I explained to him what I did, and that in between these hours, I had very little to do. This led to a discussion between corporate, my general manager, and my union about what I could and could not do within the position that I was hired for. But at the end of that entire ordeal, I was tasked with the kitchen paperwork, and chef just unloaded his whole work week onto me, telling me to get to work and that the time for slacking was over. He said this all smug, and apparently he was assuming I would not finish this or I would come begging for help. I had to do timesheets, order produce, and answer emails. Chef was always bragging about the work and that it took a whole week. But after one look, I knew he was not familiar with computers and the various programs he had to work with. So within a month, I had figured out that our time management system could be linked to our payroll system, and I only had to check if the breaks were logged correctly. Then I would hit the sync button and place the request for validation by my general manager or human resources. The same went for ordering software. I could upload a produce list and order from an iPad while walking around to different walk-ins and freezers. Also, I combined this with the 2-day spoil check. Within 2 months or so, I found out that the work schedule sheet could be copied to another week, and with another software link, I could sync up our human resources app so it would automatically generate a warning when someone was on leave or on vacation. It took me 2 night shifts to do all of the above, and the other 3 I could easily just slack on. Well, due to this, the chef had nothing to do in the office, and in turn, he was also slacking. He had literally nothing to do during the day, but just sit around in his office. Well, after about 2 months, somebody, and sure, I don't know who it was, slipped this info to the general manager, and after that, the chef had to work in the kitchen, and his 9 to 5 completely changed. He had to do breakfast shifts as he failed to do line cook work, since he was stuck 30 years in the past when sticking everything in jelly was a trend. Soon after this, corporate got wind of this great innovation, and asked our chef to document this all and send this over to them. When I left the company due to other reasons, corporate was contemplating cutting the head chef's position and making somebody else the manager responsible for the kitchen. So all in all, I'm so glad I got back at my chef, because that guy ruined a really good job in my life. I find this so funny because the chef was lazy just as as much as the original poster. And it's nobody's fault, like seriously. I've been in jobs like that where it's like, oh man, there's nothing to do and I've literally completed my job for the list. I guess it's time to sit around and do nothing and hope that I don't get caught. So for the chef to turn around and be like, wow, you're being lazy, the time for slacking's over. That is so ironic to me because that is exactly what he was doing. So it's really cool to see that you gave him a taste of his own medicine. My selfish, entitled friend demands that I allow him to propose to his girlfriend at my extravagant birthday dinner. And despite the fact that I told him no, he can't do that, as well as taking all the time to plan this special celebration, this jerk still decided to go against my wishes and propose right there on the spot to his girlfriend. And now as a result, my friends are telling me that I should be happy for them and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. But at this point, I'm honestly super pissed off and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. I'm a 27-year-old female and I recently hosted a small birthday party at a nice restaurant. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a dinner with about 15 close friends and family. I was excited because I don't usually throw big birthday celebrations, and I wanted to enjoy the night with the people that I care about. A few days before the party, my friend, who we will call Mark, pulled me aside and asked if he could propose to his girlfriend, who we will call Sarah, at my birthday dinner. He said it would be the perfect setting because all of our friends would be there and that this would make the night extra special. But you know what? I told him no. I said I was happy for him and Sarah, but this was my birthday and I didn't want the focus shifted away from that. And while he did look a little disappointed, he said that he understood. And trust me, this will be important later on. Well, fast forward to the dinner and everything was going great until Mark suddenly stood up, clinked his glass, and started giving a speech. Now, at first, I thought he was going to say something about my birthday, but no, I was completely wrong. He got down on one knee and proposed to Sarah right there at the party. Now, obviously, Sarah was overjoyed. Everyone started clapping, and suddenly, my birthday dinner turned into their engagement celebration. I was stunned and honestly pretty pissed off, but I didn't want to make a scene. I just smiled and went along with it. Afterward, I pulled Mark aside and I asked him why he did that when I already told him no. He then just shrugged his shoulders and said, I knew you'd understand. It was too perfect of a moment to pass up. I then told him I felt disrespected, and he suddenly got defensive, saying I was being selfish because a proposal's a bigger deal than a birthday. Well, now some of my mutual friends are saying that I should be happy for them and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing, but I can't help but feel like my night was completely hijacked. So seriously, am I the jerk for being upset that my friend proposed at my birthday party after I explicitly told him not to? Because right now I'm incredibly pissed off. Okay, I really need to get this out there because I kind of sense a theme when it comes to people proposing at other engagements. And I mean like stuff like a wedding or a birthday party or like a baby shower or something like that. The only reason he's like, oh yeah, this would be the perfect setting is because he's not paying for it and he didn't organize anything that you're doing. Like that's literally the only reason he's like, oh, this would be perfect. I knew you would understand. And it's like, yeah, I understand that you're a terrible friend and you're not welcome to anything I ever do again. Him saying that it's the perfect setting is basically him admitting that he's too stupid and lazy to organize this himself. And instead of doing the legwork himself, he would rather just mooch off of your hard work and reap the rewards of your planning instead of doing it himself. That really is unbelievably toxic, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. Like, you would think at this point in life, people would understand that this is not a good thing to do. It is entirely taboo to go against someone else's wishes, and for even like asking that in the first place. And sure, it's just a birthday party, but guess what? It's your birthday party. This is something that you planned with your friends and family, and this guy completely ruined that. And the fact that anybody is trying to be like, oh, you should just be happy for them. You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's like, oh, okay, is he gonna pay for like, I don't know, any reservation fees for the restaurant? Or like any party planning expenses that you had to like take on your back? Like, this is so dumb, and I just can't believe anybody would be on his side. So no, you're not the jerk for calling this guy out. What he did was completely out of line, and I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have chewed this guy out and told him exactly how I felt, because the fact that he ruined this party is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for how I handled my son's girlfriend spending the night? Because right now my daughter's pissed off at me and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I have two children. I have a 21-year-old daughter that we will call Donna and a 19-year-old son that we will call Austin. Both of them live at home, but they also stay on campus at their respective colleges. Austin has a girlfriend who we will call Bridget, with whom he's been dating for nearly a year. Early in their relationship, Bridget stayed over once while Donna was at school, and with Donna's blessing, Bridget slept in Donna's room and Austin stayed in his own. They chose to sleep sleep separately and there was no drama. Well, this winter break, both kids were home. Toward the end of the break, Bridget returned from out of state, but couldn't move back into her dorm yet. Austin then asked if she could stay with us for a few days, and I agreed, but mentioned that we would need to figure out sleeping arrangements since we don't have a guest room. All we have are mine and my husband's room, Austin's room, and Donna's room. Austin said that he and Bridget now share a bed, but his twin bed would be a very tight fit. Donna, on the other hand, has a full-size bed, so I suggested Donna and Austin switch rooms temporarily. Donna could use Austin's bed and Austin and Bridget would stay in hers. I assured Donna that I changed the bedding afterwards, but she was visibly upset and asked why Austin couldn't just sleep on the couch. I told her it was only for a few days, and since Austin wanted to share a bed with Bridget, this arrangement made sense. When Bridget arrived, everything seemed fine at first. That night, Bridget went to bed early, and Donna pulled Austin aside in the kitchen. I couldn't hear the start of their conversation, but Austin suddenly started yelling. He shouted, "Shut up, why do you always say that?" all before storming into the living room. He loudly announced that he would never invite Bridget back if everything is such a problem. When I asked what happened, Austin explained that Donna asked him not to spend quality time with Bridget in her bed, and I think you know what I'm referring to. He claimed that he had no intention of doing that and accused Donna of being weird and trying to cause trouble. Donna said that she had purposefully tried to talk to Austin quietly just to avoid any kind of scene, and she hadn't said anything to Bridget. She also said it wasn't unreasonable to ask, given that she knew that Austin and Bridget were very active, again, if you know what I mean. I then told Donna that she didn't need to make such a big deal since I had already promised to wash the sheets. Donna then became upset and ended up staying with a friend for the rest of the break. Well, fast forward and school has since resumed, but Donna is barely responding to my calls or my text messages. Austin told me Bridget overheard the argument and now feels uncomfortable being in our house or around Donna. Now, my husband said that Austin caused the scene by yelling and pointing out that Donna wasn't out of line for making her request. He also said I should never have let Bridget stay in the first place. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, there are so many things wrong with this, but let me just start off by saying that yes, you are absolutely the jerk. Because you know what? Donna's 100% right. Why couldn't Austin just sleep on the couch? Just because they sleep in the same bed doesn't mean they're gonna take Donna's bed. Like, if I was in Donna's shoes, I would be very pissed off. There is no way I would be okay with that, like at all, not for a second. And the fact that you tried to be like, oh, it's only for a few nights, it's no big deal. Just switch beds and stop being weird, I'll change the sheets. It's like, are you kidding me right now? I am not agreeing to this. This is so weird. You could have easily gotten an air mattress or something like that and been like, okay, sleep here. Instead of, I don't know, like uprooting Donna's living arrangement. So yes, I do think you're the jerk, and I think what you did is completely out of line, because that, in my opinion, was incredibly gross and very toxic. My husband gave me an ultimatum, stating that if I don't quit my side hustle teaching yoga, he's going to leave our marriage. So right now, I feel completely blindsided, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I just got married a year and a half ago to the most incredible person. I just gotten out of a 6-year relationship, we were friends for a few months, and it quickly became every bit of a classic when you know for the both of us. Within 3 months, we had bought our first home, got engaged after 9 months, and then got married almost a year to the day with a dream destination wedding in Greece. And we've been together now for over 3 years. It's important to know we are in a multicultural marriage. My husband is Hindu Punjabi, and he immigrated from India over a decade ago, and I'm a white American. Greece was an equidistant travel for both of our families, who, by the way, get along famously and have really embraced our blending of cultures. We have a lot of family support on both sides. When we got married, we were on the same page about what we expected from each other and what we wanted. Our red lines were physical violence and cheating, with us agreeing that everything else could be figured out. And one of those things that we agreed on was fitness. In the early stages of our relationship, we worked out together constantly, we went on runs, etc., and we talked often about our mutual desire to continue to cultivate a long, healthy life together. Now, a few differences that need to be noted. He grew up in a household with very traditional gender roles in India, namely where his father was verbally awful to his mother, and he would go days giving her the silent treatment. My husband has also been open about how witnessing this affected him growing up. His parents have worked it out over time, but his mom has shared openly about this dynamic with me. His father rarely has to lift a finger at home, but worked very hard to provide for the family. So yes, a very traditional Indian culture. My husband has 2 sisters who both take a more modern approach to their relationships, and that seems to be accepted within the family. Now, my parents split responsibilities 50-50 as often as possible. Both work full-time, they've always been best friends, and I rarely saw them argue. Also, my husband is easily triggered and very reactionary. He works on it in his own way, but refuses to try individual therapy. Shortly after we got together, we moved to a new state for his job, about an hour north of the city where we met and had a lot of friends. He worked a mid-shift at the time, and wasn't getting home until 1 to 3 3 o'clock in the morning the first year of living in our new state. The hour drive made it harder to see friends regularly, and I was home alone all the time. Well, integrative nutrition and movement gave me my life back a few years ago after being diagnosed with a chronic illness. So after about a year of living in our new state, I found a local fitness studio to start taking classes to tone up for our wedding and to meet some friends. Also, my husband has had on and off issues with the herb, if you know what I mean. Very all or nothing kind of person, with no balance to when the herb is in the house, so that started to really creep back up just before we got married. It's a daily fight for him, and I'm here to help him through it. Every few months he does relapse, he goes on a bender and then realizes it's sending him into a deeper depression. Being loved by a supportive partner gave me another level of confidence. I felt like I could pursue just about anything, and we would somehow just make it work. I had been a fitness instructor in college, and I had always wanted to pick it back up. So with his late night schedule, I signed up for a yoga teacher training program and started the weekend we returned from our wedding. Now this was an every other weekend intensive and a big time commitment, but I made a point to try my best to nurture our free time together. I ended up loving teaching yoga. I made lifelong friends and was the first in my cohort to be offered a job right after training at the studio. Teaching at this studio is highly competitive. Usually you have to do a mentorship, but they let me get right on the schedule, and I was super thrilled. My husband then started experiencing pretty significant job stress around this time, and honestly, he was also dealing with a really awful boss situation, and I'm sure we've all been there. He then started showing symptoms of high-functioning depression. He was in bed for both weekend days, doom scrolling and watching football. He was withdrawn from activities that used to make him happy. He had no desire to spend time with friends and had limited energy to spend time with me. Now, his parents and my parents and some of our friends noticed the change. Instead of a partnership, he started expressing his desire for me to act more like a stay-at-home wife. Dinner on the table every night, house tidy as a main responsibility, but I also work a 9-to-5 remote from home, and I am the breadwinner. So it was really hard to have this expectation morph from a shared responsibility to solely being mine. All of this was building until we found out I had an aggressive form of pre-cancer and had to see a specialist for treatment in another state, which by the way, this was 8-hour round trips every weekend for months. The whole thing seemed to give him purpose again, and confronted with my potential early mortality, we spent our car rides talking about our dreams and life goals. We dreamed up the idea to start a matcha and cold-pressed juice camper to have a little side business together on the weekends, and started moving forward with that, but as soon as I got the all clear last June, he fell right back into a depressive episode. I tried to plan small activities without putting too much on his plate, since work stress was at an all-time high, but after a while, he started to resent me for keeping him away from being in bed. I continued with our business plans alone, kept teaching yoga, working my 9-to-5, and holding it down for him at home, but no amount of me would help him pull out of the work, then bed, then depression cycle. In his darker moments, he expressed that he felt like my job teaching yoga was taking away from my ability to be there for him. When I asked for specifics, he would just tell me, "Oh, you should just know," and that no matter what I did, I was somehow falling short. At this point, I had fallen in love with teaching yoga. In fact, my classes started waitlisting. Helping my students gave me passion and purpose, and I had finally found real community, which was such a bright spot when there was no effort being put into our partnership at home. Our fights began to escalate, and I found myself on the receiving end of low blows, as well as name-calling and verbal mistreatment. I tried so hard to meet him where he was and stay neutral and non-reactive, but you can only be called the B word so many times without losing it on occasion. This past November, he was promoted and finally had normal work hours again. I switched my workout schedule at the studio to mornings so that I could be there for him when he got home at night, with the exception of one night a week. When I got offered a second class and weekend spot on the yoga schedule, and this is because my first class was doing so well, I wanted to accept it immediately, but made a point to ask him first. He then said he was okay with it, but hated the idea. Over the past year of teaching, it's been hard seeing other instructors' friends' husbands show up for them, and there's just something about this gig that my husband just hates, and I wish he could be just as supportive and proud, but anytime I spend at the yoga studio, which is at max maybe 3 hours weekly, he's expressed that it takes away from him somehow. A girlfriend of mine, whom my husband knows well, and I thought likes as a human being, from the yoga studio that I go to, came over Monday night to do a little bit of extra work on a series that we're doing together. I cooked dinner for all of us, I made sure my husband had what he needed, and after my friend left, I got in bed and I gave him a hug, only to then be met by him saying, "Get the F away from me," followed by 48 hours of silent treatment, despite my pleading to try and have a conversation. Last night, he came to me and said, "It's yoga or it's me. You have until Sunday to quit your teaching job or I'm leaving our marriage." And now I'm just completely gutted. I've tried to offer a compromise and even offered to take a short leave of absence from teaching, teaching, but he refuses to speak to me until I make my decision on Sunday, and apparently it's all or nothing. Movement has saved my mental health. I have found so much purpose through teaching. Having a student approach me to tell me that they sleep better on nights that they had taken one of my classes, or that they feel more relaxed or inspired in any way, just absolutely lights me up. I finally feel seen standing up there, and I've somehow gotten good at it. I love being of service to other people. Yoga has transformed my mental health so much that I stepped away from therapy in 2023, but out of desperation, I reached out to my former psychologist for an emergency session this morning, who told me to hold the line and not quit just because he's threatening to leave. Hearing her say that the hardest thing you'll ever do is say no, and then watch what he does next, has ripped me to my very core. I still love this man and desperately want to make it work, even though I know if I were to hear this story from a friend or stranger, they would tell me to run away. I finally told my parents what's been going on, and they are supportive. I also quietly reached out to his sister, who reassured me that we are family and they would knock some sense into him. But seriously, am I missing something here? This ultimatum seems like it's about something so much deeper than my yoga job, but it's ripping me apart that the person I love wants me to quit something I've become so passionate about. What should I do? Okay, this is so messed up because you literally have done nothing wrong. First and foremost, your husband's being a massive jerk, and the fact that he's giving you an ultimatum, as well as treating you the way his dad treated his mom, in my opinion, is a massive, giant red flag. Because yeah, you're right, if anyone else told you this story, you would tell them to run away. The fact that he's trying to be like, oh, you need to quit your job as a yoga instructor or we're getting a divorce. That is such a giant leap in logic, it's not even funny. You're literally doing everything around the house, you're holding a full-time job, you're trying to pull him out of this depressive episode, and now he's trying to sit there and be like, oh, I want to be depressed. Let me just stay in bed all day. By the way, quit your job. It's like, dude, this is so stupid. You're literally getting upset about something that doesn't affect you. You've even changed your studio times to the morning so that you literally will be there for him and spend more quality time with your husband. And it's like you already do everything around the house and you're waiting on him practically hand and foot. This guy's still like, no, get away from me. Giving you the silent treatment for what, 2 days? What is he, a child? Like, this is so stupid. Because when you started out explaining what's going on, you describe him as like a good person and a really good man, but clearly the honeymoon period is over. And I don't know about anybody else listening, but there's no way I would ever get married to someone that fast. I better know everything about them, or they better be someone who's undeniably perfect in every way possible. Because that, in my opinion, is just really quick, but that's neither here nor there. I think more to the point, the fact that this guy gave you an ultimatum proves to me that this guy has some serious mental health issues, and maybe he's coming from a place of jealousy that you seem to be living your best life while he's sitting in bed rotting away and just doom scrolling. Which, by the way, hey, fun fact, that's not your fault. You're literally doing everything right, and this guy's trying to drag you down with him. So no, you are not the jerk, you didn't do anything wrong, and the fact that your husband is treating you this way is honestly unacceptable, because you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for making my husband leave work early so that he could give me the car keys that he took with him to work? Because right now I feel bad, but I'm also incredibly annoyed, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I really feel awful about this, but my husband has a habit of forgetting or just ignoring things that I say. I work from home, and I'm always there to unlock the front door for my husband when he gets back from work. So the couple of times I've needed the car, I get very annoyed that he's taken the house keys attached to the car keys with him. And this has happened a few times. He will lock all the house doors in the morning and go off to work with the car keys so I can neither leave the house nor drive anywhere. So I made sure that we had 2 sets of keys, and the second pair must always be on the console table for emergencies. Well, the problem is, my husband started keeping the emergency keys in his work bag, and if he took the car anywhere, I was again locked in the house. This recently happened again when my family was coming over, and they stood at the locked door while I searched the house for his work bag. Well, today, I woke up very unwell, and in between my meetings, I wanted to run to the chemist, while also wanting to pick up a book that I had on hold at the library, when once again, my husband had taken the car keys. What made me so angry was that I have told him this a million times, and I could have had a massive emergency. He was so calm and apologetic on the phone, but this honestly just made me more angrier. I am just so sick of him never listening. So I lost it, and I demanded he come home immediately and drop the keys back because I need to go to the chemist. He started apologizing and saying he has a meeting at work about to start, but I told him this is not a discussion, and I expect him back home right now because I am sick of repeating myself. Now, he said he's on his way back, but I feel so awful stressing him out while he's at work and making him take a 40-minute journey back. But I'm also so desperate to be heard the first time, which is exactly how I listen and respect his wishes. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because because right now I'm incredibly pissed off. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. This really could get on my nerves pretty quickly, especially when there's not an extra pair of keys in the house. And don't get me wrong, I think the principle of the matter is super important here, where you quite literally just want him to hear what you're saying, but I would say at your earliest convenience, make a spare copy of everything, and keep that on you at all cost, because what you're describing sounds really frustrating, like that would piss me off so bad, especially when you're sick and you need to go to the chemist, and for people in America, that's another name for pharmacist. Like if I was in that scenario, I would be so annoyed, I'd be like, listen, I feel like garbage. I need the car keys, I need to go somewhere, like you can't do this to me. So no, with all things considered, you're not the jerk, and hopefully this is a wake-up call for this guy where he's like, okay, I've got to start listening to my wife, because his behavior is super annoying and I don't blame you for getting upset in the way that you did. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.